Tuesday, May 22nd, 2023, 5 p.m. Wytheville Town Council meeting. We do have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilwoman Tommy Atkins.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I will need a motion to accept as is or somehow amended.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the May 8th meeting.
We're approving the whole agenda
Yes, ma'am.
as is.
Yes, ma'am.
My motion to accept the agenda as is. Do I have a second? Second. Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Let's roll call. This would be a roll call vote.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson, aye. Taylor, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Gilman, aye.
And the rest passed. So housekeeping, if anybody needs a recess, council, just, next on the agenda is a consent agenda, which does, is one item, which is the minutes of the regular meeting of May 8th. This will require a motion and a vote. Have a motion? Accept as is.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye as well. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Yes. So we do have a little change in the way our agenda flows out going forward. And blessed us with a change in format. So if we struggle, just bear with us a little bit. But the first item, we will go and do some public hearings and requests and resolutions. But first, we have to consider a master fee and rate schedule that includes increases in zoning fees, utility fees, and other various fees. Now, here a staff presentation from Assistant Town Manager Lynn Colton. After that, I will open up a public hearing. During the public hearing, each person will have 5 minutes to speak. If they come up and state their name and their address, and I'll remind you if need be. And then after the public hearing, after we close it, council will vote on the topic. So, Ms. Holton.
Good evening. My name is Elaine Holton, and I'm the Assistant Town Manager, and I am pleased to report to you this evening on the master fee and rate schedule. In December of 2022, Town Management, in partnership with the town's department heads, began work on a proposed master fee and rate schedule. The need for the project was driven by 3 goals. Number 1 was to develop a centralized approach to how fees and rates are shared with the public, and the goal was established to improve the overall communication of our fees and rates to the public while also centralizing this data for regular upkeep and maintenance. The second goal of this project was to facilitate a systemic annual review of our fees and rates. By housing a comprehensive list of rates and fees in a central location, we will provide the Town Council with the tools needed to conduct an annual review of the fees and rates early in the budget process. And we anticipate that in future years, this could occur as early as January of each year. The third goal of this project was to more accurately reflect the value of user fees to adjust for external factors such as inflationary costs and competition for services, while also considering intrinsic costs such as the cost of personnel and program-specific costs. While user fees in general are unable to recover the entire cost for the services that the town provides, we believe that generating more revenue from user fees is a more sustainable approach than sole reliance on general fund revenues to offset the cost of these services. And each of you have received a copy of the master fee and rate schedule in your packets. I'm just going to go over the process a bit. In January of this year, the department heads were asked to submit an Excel sheet with their current fees while also considering if fee changes were needed for the services that the department provides. The department heads considered the following factors and questions in submitting their recommendations for fee changes: inflation, personnel, and other costs impacting the department, the period of time since the last fee or rate change, whether new fees are needed, the value for service, what other entities charge, how the services align with similar services provided by other private and public entities, and what similar localities charge. Affordability and striking a balance between recovery of costs while ensuring that our citizens receive the highest level of service for a fair price were all considered. I am proud to report that each of the department heads provided the recommendations based on qualitative and quantitative research at the department head level, and upon review, town management considered and agreed with these recommendations. And the information was assembled in the master rate and fee schedule under review tonight. I'm not going to go over all of the report that I prepared for you, but it is in your packet. But I do want to mention that one of the things in your master fee and rate schedule is a modest increase in the water and sewer rates. And I do want to touch on that briefly. As you recall, the water and the sewer utility funds are self-funded. This means that both the operational and capital costs associated with providing water and sewer must be generated independent of the general fund. These funds are generated through the utility rate fees, which are charged to water and sewer customers, and the water and sewer operational costs have skyrocketed. We have experienced a persistent increase in costs associated with critical materials and supplies, such as items needed for operations, such as polymers, chlorine, pumps, lab supplies, sulfur dioxide, water meters, and items such as ductile iron pipe have tripled in cost. Brass fittings have doubled, and don't even get me started on electrical costs. As we all know, those have increased. In addition to the increase in operational costs, the town is faced with real and projected increases in capital costs. This includes the new costs associated with the regulatory requirements of the lead service replacement mandate and the capital costs associated with the projected need in future water, such as the costs associated with the Lotscap water tank and the expansion of the New River Regional Water Authority. Aging infrastructure and replacement of lines have further challenged the water and sewer funds. And as you recall, this year we experienced a major replacement of both the Lithia Road and the Industrial Road sewer lines. Next year, we need to address the inflow and infiltration challenges with our sewer, along with a long list of much needed system and equipment repair and replacement. The water and sewer rate changes that you are reviewing tonight include a $1 increase for all water and sewer customers' base rate. Low to medium users of water and sewer will not see an increase in either water or sewer usage rates. The rate increases are structured for high-end users of water and sewer in the town of Wytheville. Essentially, large water and sewer customers that use over 25,000 gallons are the only entities that will receive a rate increase. And the new rate schedule should not affect any residential customers of public water or sewer. The only increase for residential users is the $1 added to the base rate. The other fee changes that you see in your packet reflect the operational cost across the departments, and most of these fees have remained stagnant for several years. Our goal was to make minor adjustments to keep pace with inflation and not exceed the affordability criteria for the services that we provide. After this presentation, you will host a public hearing, and the public hearing is a statutory requirement to increase utility fees and zoning fees. I am pleased to announce that all public hearing advertisements were met in preparation for this meeting. And if you have any questions tonight, myself or Mr. Freeman will be here to answer those for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now open the public hearing to consider the master fees and rate schedule that includes increases in other various fees. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and speak for this open hearing? Once? And we will now, somebody coming in, so I'll wait just a minute. Right now we are at, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak towards the public hearing? Consider the master fee and rate schedule that includes increases in zoning fees, utility rates, and other various fees. Anybody would like to speak to that? If not, is a closed session is now closed. And this will now go to council for consideration by town council to adopt master fee and rate schedule. This will require a motion and a roll call vote. The motion,
I move that we approve the master fee and rate increase.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any discussion?
Yes. I'm not in agreement with one thing, and that would be the increase, the youth admission fee, also known as the Try Youth, increasing the youth fee at the recreation center, also known as the Try It Youth fee. It will be increasing by $1.50, and I'm not for this. I'm standing for the youth of our community today. I don't think there should be an increase, and I have previously mentioned that. It is a safe haven for youth, and I feel that the increase may set them back to where they may not be able to come and attend. So I am not for it.
Is there any other discussion? We want to amend the motion and we want to amend the motion and amend it by putting it out, leaving that out.
Yes, we can approve everything else, but that needs to be kept out, needs to be revisited by council. That's the same.
We have a motion to consider the changes with the exception of the youth fee. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Also have a question about the street closure. I know that there used not to be a fee, and I was just wondering if somebody knew a little dialogue about that.
Would you like me to address?
Please.
Sure. So in essence, working with the Safety and Events Committee, one of the criteria that we were looking at for having that as a new fee was just to recur some of the costs to the town for hosting the street closures. As you all know, most of the times these occur on a Saturday, and our Public Works Department typically have to work overtime to have the appropriate staff to come out and place the Jersey barriers, and then also after the event to pick up the Jersey barriers. In addition to the Public Works Department, we also experience costs with public safety. The PD typically will assign additional members of their staff to work events. Sometimes with the events, we also need traffic control, which requires additional officers for that as well. So it's essentially a minor fee to try to recoup some of the costs affiliated with those events.
I personally would like to see that taken. It should just be community involvement.
Sure, you're gonna have to help me with this as we get different ones going on. So do I amend the motion again?
Yes.
All right, so so now we have a motion to accept as presented with the exceptions of the youth fee and the street closure fee. Correct. Yeah.
Did Ms. Johnson only say one? Was the youth
I
fee?
did say one at
Just
first.
one?
I wasn't clear.
Okay.
But I am clear now. I am with that also.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't understand.
Anything that involves community.
I may have one more question. I know when we, Johnson and I, we talked to you when we came in, and I was wondering, we had talked about adjusting, the loss of a child. About that.
Can you tell me what page you're on?
Yes, sir. It's on 26, and I may be looking at the wrong section, but I thought we were gonna possibly waive that. We thought that may be enough there.
Which one are you on?
20, on page 26, and it says opening and closing the child's grade.
I can take that one, Holly. So in essence, on your sheet on page 26, where you see the infant square, these would be for the cemetery rates. The fee is currently $205, and upon your request, Holly, we made that $0 under the new fee section.
Oh, on below that, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So we did take that fee out for the burial of infants in our town cemeteries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Hearing any other for the dialogue, this will be a roll call vote, and we'll start with Mr. Gilman, please.
Gilman, aye.
Edison, aye.
Gilman, aye.
And just one question to make it clear. So we will be adjusting that, take that out. Those will be questioned, correct?
That's
Those two?
correct. That's
Okay.
what those two items.
That's fine. Atkins, just checking. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Oh. Next on the agenda is consideration of real property tax rate increase of 3 cents per $100 valuation. Ordinance number 1423, an ordinance setting real property tax rate for the town of Wytheville, Virginia on the first and final reading. So as previously, we will hear a staff report. And then we will open up a public hearing. For those speaking in the public hearing, you have to come up, state your name and your address, and have 5 minutes to share your thoughts with us. Great.
Before I get started, Mayor Tim, I just want to thank you all for that work right there. That was, in my opinion, a lovely display of democracy at work, frankly. So thank you all. One of the first things I think any citizen wants to know when they read the paper or they read social media and they hear that a tax increase is being proposed is why and what are you going to do with the money? And I hope that the slides and the presentation that follow will help everyone understand why I'm standing here today, why the council is considering this, and hopefully you'll all leave here with a better understanding of where your money goes. Since March of 2020, the town of Wytheville and governments across the country have been forced to adjust services due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the fiscal year 2020-21, the town of Wytheville was forced to curtail many of the services customarily provided, and some facilities, including our recreation center, meeting center, museums, and visitor centers, were temporarily closed. Numerous full-time employees were furloughed, part-time employees were simply not scheduled, and many vacant positions went unfilled for several months. The burden of occupying the staffing void fell to those that remained. And despite it all, our staff was able to implement new ways to conduct business that not only improved many of our processes, but have made the organization more resilient and more efficient than ever, while remaining both responsive and focused on customer service. During the same time frame, the town of Wytheville made significant temporary reductions to expenditures. Those reductions were necessary, but were not sustainable, and thus never expected to be permanent. We halted the hiring of many positions. We paused nearly all capital expenditures. We delayed any project that could be delayed and removed all excess we could identify from the budget. Fast forwarding to the 2022-23 budget development time frame, or the same time last year, we put together a budget that was aimed at restoring service levels to pre-pandemic levels. And this goal has largely been accomplished. It hasn't been easy, and it won't be easy to sustain moving forward. We continue to have financial challenges. As we progress through the fiscal year 23-24 budget development process, we continue to deal with the same pandemic-related economic impacts that affected the two prior budget cycles. And these are increasing our expenditures in two specific areas. The first is record inflation of more than 6% and the continued disruption of supply chains. Both factors are dramatically increasing the cost of construction, equipment replacement, facilities maintenance, processed chemicals for our treatment plants, and I could probably go on for 10 more minutes. The second area involves the cost of attracting and retaining employees in today's market. People with the skill sets like those we need to provide the quality services that citizens have come to expect are in very high demand, with intense competition for qualified applicants. Town Council has been very supportive in helping us become more competitive in this area by adjusting salaries to market rates, maintaining fringe benefits, and remaining open to flexible scheduling, and we're certain that will help us remain competitive. The town has been experiencing a budget deficiency since before the pandemic. Important to note. After removal of capital and all one-time expenditures, basically removing it for analysis, a recurring operating deficiency remains. This deficiency is directly linked to the transition to full-time paid fire and emergency medical operations and was exacerbated by pandemic-related financial fallout, such as inflation, increasing wages, increasing costs, increasing fringe benefits, et cetera. There has been some growth in revenues over the last budget cycle, and we're certainly grateful for that. This is primarily due to pandemic-related inflationary forces that impact prices, drive up the revenues related to consumer taxes like meals tax, lodging tax, and state sales tax. And there's also some favorable short-term interest rates on savings that will generate some additional revenue for the town, but it's not something we can count on long-term. The essence of what I've said so far is that we've got challenges. Things are improving, but we've got to sustainably stabilize our budget moving forward. We cannot continue year after year to budget deficits. That's simply can't be. The town of Wytheville engaged with Davenport Public Finance in mid-2022 to perform a comprehensive analysis of the town's finances, to identify strengths and weaknesses in the town's annual cash flow and budgets through a multi-year historical trend analysis. At the conclusion of the analysis in January of 23, Davenport made several recommendations to the town council in a work session in this room. They recommended that meals tax be raised by 1 cent. They recommended that lodging tax be raised by 1 cent. They recommended that we transfer funds from the water and sewer funds to the general fund to cover unaccounted for liabilities of operating those funds. And that real property tax be raised by 5.8 cents by 2020. In response to the recommendations, the town has passed a 1 cent meals tax increase. You've all passed that in May. We have included in this budget a $476,000 transfer from the water and sewer funds to the general fund to help support the general fund and the activities that the general fund supports within the water and sewer funds, if that makes sense. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a bit. And also included for the council's consideration and the purpose of this meeting tonight is a 3 cent increase in the real property. Where does the money go? We're going to take a very high level look at where the money goes and get into a little bit deeper discussion here. Local governments are required to utilize fund accounting principles to segregate revenues and expenditures into either general or specified funds for the purposes of financial accountability. By and large, the town of Wytheville's finances are separated into either the water and sewer funds, which are also known as enterprise funds. As Elaine indicated earlier, they're self-sustaining funds whose revenues are derived from fees, so they're called enterprise funds. And also the general fund, with a few smaller special purpose funds, such as the Perpetual Care Fund that funds capital improvements in our cemeteries. And there's also a Wall of Honor fund that annually gets a $2,000 contribution from the general fund to help support Wall of Honor activities. There's an OPEB fund, which is quite small. It's actually less than 1%, so the graph recognizes it as zero here. The OPEB fund is a fund that funds a health insurance supplement to retirees that retire from the town with 25 years of service for 5 years. And that's for those that retire with 25 years of service but that are not Medicare eligible. We take a look at the expenditures by function. Historically speaking, the water and sewer funds represent our largest expenditures by function, and these expenditures are entirely within the water and sewer fund. Most of the remaining expenditures by function are captured within the town's general fund. Off from the previous slide, the OPEB, the perpetual care, and those others are quite small. Over the last 10 years, the largest expenditure by function has been water and sewer. This includes the treatment of drinking water, necessary construction, maintenance, repairs, of the distribution system, storage tanks, distribution lines, meters, pumps, valves, etc. It also includes all the personnel who work in these departments. This also includes the collection, treatment, and disposal of sanitary sewer or wastewater. These are critical human health and safety functions of the local government, and we have a great group of about 40 full-time and 10 part-time employees that work 7 days a week, including nights and holidays, to keep these systems operating well. It's a costly endeavor, and it is by function historically our greatest expense. In 21 and 22, our most recently audited fiscal year, we spent about $6.4 million, or 26% of our entire expenditure for the year in water and sewer. Now we're moving over to the general fund. We're still talking about expenditure by function, but we're no longer in water and sewer fund. We're moving over to general fund. I want everybody to focus on the general fund, especially for this hearing, because that's where the real property tax revenues go. So moving forward, we're talking just about general fund. Until recently, public works was the second highest expenditure by function, but that was surpassed in recent years by public safety. And we'll talk about that in greater detail in just a minute. Public safety includes about 50 full-time and a few part-time employees who play a critical role in the day-to-day service delivery being provided by the town. Public works includes street maintenance, which is paving, right-of-way mowing and maintenance, snow and ice removal, brush collection and disposal. The town owns 3 cemeteries, including West End Cemetery, East End Cemetery, and Oakwood Cemetery, and provides all the mowing and maintenance and burial services to those cemeteries. This also includes solid waste collection, garbage. It's also known as refuge or garbage. This is sign installation and maintenance, traffic signal maintenance, building and ground maintenance, and custodial work, and we could go on and on. The largest expenditure by function within the general fund is public safety. Public safety includes police, fire, emergency medical service, animal control, the building official's office. Public safety has experienced a significant growth over the last 5 years. The most significant factor driving this growth was the transition to full-time paid fire and EMS staffing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm going to read that one more time. The most significant factor driving this growth was the transition to full-time fire and EMS staffing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is a move that made citizens of the town of Wytheville significantly safer, but it is without question a costly endeavor. Consider, for example, that between 2011 and 2017, the town of Wytheville spent an average of $3,136,900 in the public safety category. In 2018, the amount increased to $3,835,000, or about $700,000 more than the average of the prior 6 years. This marks the beginning of the transition to full-time paid fire department. In the fiscal year 2020-21, the number increased significantly to $6.7 million. Much of this increase is attributable to the transition to full-time paid emergency medical service and the eventual creation of a combined Wytheville Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department, which has 30 full-time dual-trained fire and EMS personnel. Fiscal year 2020 and 21 included the infusion of CARES Act funds, which were provided by the federal government and utilized to renovate the fire and EMS building, provide sleeping quarters for those personnel, and also hazardous duty bonuses for all fire, EMS, and police personnel. CARES Act actually limited the hazardous duty bonuses to only those personnel, and we were able to do that, and we were grateful for it. The main reason for the decrease in the following year was because the CARES Act funds were expended and we were back to what would be basically a more normal operating year. We did experience significant shortages that second year. Now I'm on 21 and 22. Staffing shortages led to vacancy savings, but that is not a good way to save money. That is a good way to wear out your staff. It's not sustainable. At one point in time, the town was down 6 of 28 uniformed officers. At the same time, we were down 4 or 5 fire and EMS personnel within the fire and EMS department. These are professions that have been in shortage nationally, due in part to COVID-19 and in part to other forces that are forcing many to leave the profession altogether. We are fortunately back to near full staffing in both departments. While some communities are defunding their public safety departments, the town of Wytheville is going in the opposite direction. I can speak with confidence when I say that we have 63 full-time police, fire, and EMS personnel sincerely dedicated to protecting this community and saving lives around the clock. This function made up $5.26 million or 21% of all expenditures across any fund in the 21-22 budget. And I use that for reference because that's a fully audited year. This graph shows the change in just the departmental budgets for police, fire, and EMS. This does intentionally exclude the building official's office and animal control. This also does not take into account the expenses that are charged to the buildings, the police department building, the fire and EMS building, or the animal shelter. But it's basically showing you the changes in operational expenses of these departments over the 2015 to 2023 timeframe. I'll let y'all study that for a second. All right. In addition to the added staffing, the town of Wytheville made significant investments in public safety that are not easily reflected or not entirely reflected within the operating budgets inside these departments. This is sort of a nebulous concept, but it's real, and I'm going to try to explain it. One such example is the addition of the Hazardous Duty Retirement Supplement. This was often referred to as LEOs, but I want to make clear that it's also eligible, and all of our fire and EMS personnel are also enjoying this benefit. It is a Hazardous Duty Retirement Supplement, and it's offered through the Virginia Retirement System and is provided to all first responders, including fire and EMS personnel. This resulted in a significant increase in the town's contribution to VRS across all plans. And why do I say all plans? When the LEOs program was implemented, there was an actuarial study. The town was paying in the neighborhood of 7 to 8% of gross income toward the pension plan. That is now at 12.86%. And that is charged across all departments, not just within the police, fire, and EMS department. So while there is a line and there is an account within each of these departments to pay the retirement benefit, there's also a line in every single departmental budget that has personnel in it that pays this 12.86%. As you can see, that number went from 2015 at $519,000. And we still have last year's projected number in there of $869,000. So there's a $350,000 increase in retirement over that time frame. That's 67%.
And is that for Leos and police, fire, and rescue?
Correct. Yeah, and actually VRS was the one who called it Leos, but I think the more technical term for it is a Hazardous Duty Retirement Supplement, and it is for police, fire, and EMS personnel.
Now, maybe why it was less in 2015, 16.
Apparently, the fund was, I think the fund was slightly overfunded, and so that was kind of a catch-up year from VRS, is my understanding. Then we went to, they only do the actuarial studies when you change something significant, like we did with that, or every couple, 2 or 3 years, they reassess the needs of the pension plan.
And then we did take on the fire. That's what sort of creeped up some?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
I just
That's
wanna make
absolutely
sure.
part of it,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, where does the money come from? That's the other half of the ledger. One of the most of these categories you'll see we have, I've got typically up here in orange, I've got the way the auditors bundle these taxes together. And all of the taxes on the left represent what the auditors categorize as local taxes. This includes meals, lodging, B-poll, state sales tax, bank stock tax, tobacco, consumer utility, et cetera, et cetera. On the chart on the right, we can see that local taxes made up about 44% of the entire general fund revenue. And we're going to go into those. Notice that real estate, personal property, machine and tools is not listed here. So 44% of the entire general fund revenue comes from meals, lodging, B-poll, and state sales tax, and then some other smaller categories there. Meals taxes are, I want to be clear about this. We're not talking about grocery tax that you pay, which is a substitute for state sales tax when you go to a local grocery store. Meals taxes are taxes on foods prepared for human consumption, primarily by restaurant. The tax does not apply to food sold through vending machines or other food sold in grocery or convenience stores that are not already prepared. Meals tax revenues came in at $3,150,000 in 18 and 19. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, these revenues declined sharply for FY19 and 20, and again in 20 and 21. As a result of the pandemic and related uncertainties, the projected meals tax for 2021 was very conservative at $2,700,000. The reemergence of business and leisure travel, combined with the inflationary forces impacting prices, led to a higher projection of $3,400,000 for last year, the current year that we're in. We're currently on pace to exceed this figure, and we're certainly thankful for that. Meals tax has and will continue to be a vitally important revenue stream for the town of Wytheville during the 23-24 fiscal year. Included in the budget is a proposed 1 cent increase for meals tax, and you all passed that in May. That will net us about $500,000 more in new revenue moving forward. Meals tax made up 18% of the entire general fund alone, nearly 20% of the entire general fund. Lodging tax, much like meals tax, lodging or transient occupancy tax has historically been a vital revenue stream for the town of Wytheville. The town's situation at the intersection of Interstate 81 and 77, along with favorable topography, low overall tax rate, combined to make Wytheville a very attractive location for the development of lodging establishments. Lodging taxes hit a high water mark in fiscal year 2018 and 19 with a collection of $1,486,000. Due to the pandemic and a near shutdown on travel, these revenues dropped nearly 20% to about $1.2 million in 2020-21. Revenue projections for 2021 and 22 remain very conservative at $1,400,000. However, collections did outperform those projections. Lodging revenues for the current fiscal year 21-22 were budgeted at $1,761,000, and we're currently on pace to eclipse that figure. As of right now, we have projected lodging tax revenues of $1,953,000. That makes up 8.8% of the general fund revenue. So 18% from meals and 8.8% from lodging. So nearly 25% of the entire general fund budget from meals and lodging taxes alone. This one should be a little eye-opening. Categorical aid is given to localities by the state in the form of grants to target specific programs and must be spent for very narrowly defined purposes. By and large, most of Wytheville's categorical aid comes in the form of VDOT maintenance funds, which total about $2.77 million annually. These funds are based primarily on the number of lane miles of roadway maintained by the town. Other highlights of this budget revenue category include grants from the Virginia Department of Transportation for the completion of the Heritage Walk Phase 3, an annual grant of $205,000 from Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services to support law enforcement, an ARPA grant through DCJS, which Chief Hash tells me we've got an award letter on. Congratulations, Chief Hash. In the amount of $158,000, an annual grant of $30,000 from the Virginia Department of Fire Programs to support our fire department, and a $50,000 grant from the Virginia Tourism Commission for marketing programs. Categorical aid, which is direct aid from the state, makes up another 18%. So we've got 25% in meals and lodging and 18% straight from the state. I think, Ms. Atkins, you had asked at the last meeting to give a little more detail on miscellaneous revenues, so I'll put this slide in today. Miscellaneous revenues are sort of a catch-all place, and if you look at this historically, most of the time, more often than not, most of these categories have nothing in them. It's just when there is a revenue stream that comes in that doesn't really have a clear-cut home, it ends up here. This is where the transfer from the water and sewer fund lives, and I assume that may have been maybe why you want to see more about that, because that category jumped up, about $250,000 from last year. But this is where the transfer from the water and sewer funds is coming in. It's about 3% of overall revenue. I wanted to highlight interest on reserves because this, frankly, is a unforeseen blessing, but it's not something we can count on. If we continue to have interest rates in the 5s and 6s and 7s, then we're in trouble. But we do intend to try to capture as much interest on these reserves as possible while the opportunity exists. This is on any money that is interest bearing in any of our savings accounts, or any other words, money's not sitting in our operating account, although those monies we hope will start seeing some better rates as well. We're currently getting daily interest rates over 5% on our reserves. The Federal Reserve has been increasing interest rates in an effort to combat inflation. Higher interest rates theoretically increase the cost of capital or borrowing, which discourages spending and encourages savings. Unfortunately, as wages are going up across the country, as more money goes into more people's hands, the spending continues and inflation continues to stay high. It's a problem I am glad I don't have to solve. This cannot be counted upon long term. However, it's anticipated that the trend of higher returns on savings will last for a while. The Federal Reserve has targeted a core inflation rate of 2%, and we were still above 6% in February. This is not normally and still really isn't a huge part of the town's budget, but we are budgeting $410,000 in additional revenues that we did not budget for last year, simply on interest on reserves. And this is helping us get closer to a balanced budget.
Mr. Cameron, who actually keeps up with the interest?
Well, it's currently most of our money is in VIP, which is the Virginia Investment.
Yes, sir. I mean, who actually just
Mr. Stevens checks it every single day.
I want to throw that out there. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Stevens,
Mr. Stevens,
for keeping that out there.
And he likes to see me in the hall and say, "Hey, we get $5." So I know he checks it every day. Thank you. See, right on cue.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
And let me just say real quickly, thank you to Mr. Stevens for all of his help with this. While I get to sit up here and talk about it, Mike's been with us for nearly 40 years and frankly has developed a complete mastery of our financial situation and of what is in this budget. He's been the guy putting this thing together for that long, and without him, I couldn't. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. That's kind.
That is.
Usually you don't get that around places. That's kind.
All right, use of reserves. This is the number that we should. This is the one we have to keep an eye on. This is the one that when we add up expenditures and revenues and there's a mismatch, this is where we go to make it balance. The Code of Virginia says we must balance the budget, and there's only one way to do that, and that's to dip into the savings account. That's the situation we've been facing for 5 years in a row. Now, last year we were facing $1.5 million in the hole, and we finished in the black. We did not finish under in the general fund last year. But that's primarily due to tremendous staffing shortages that we had. And like I said earlier, that's simply not sustainable. It's exhausting. And, we were fortunate to finish in the black, but we were darn lucky, frankly. All right, the use of reserves is a single revenue line in the budget, but we're going to talk about it as two different areas that we need to be thinking about. We need to be thinking about, I'm sorry.
1 second. Is that hung in there all those, a couple of years that didn't give up? I know there was, I'm sure, several that probably did, but thank them all.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that we're going to start looking at is the use of reserves as capital and one-time expenditures and also operating funds. And this gives us a better understanding of what type of hole we have. It's one thing to make capital and one-time expenditures as needed strategically. It's another thing to be in a protracted situation of recurring operating debt. We are getting closer to filling the hole for recurring operating debt, but we've got to start making money in order to continue funding capital and strategic capital and one-time expenditures, and also things that happen that are unpredictable. There are several projects listed up here. This very first one is new debt service. I'll be signing, you all have approved that. I'll be signing the paperwork with USDA tomorrow. This is for a new garbage truck that's worn out and a dehumidification system that has basically quit. Keep in mind that the dehumidification system is a $580,000 expense, and the refuse truck is a $250,000 expense. We are borrowing at 3.75 from USDA for 10 years, and this equipment has both pieces of equipment have about a 10-year life expectancy, but this is allows us to keep our money in reserve accounts, drawing higher interest than what we're borrowing it at, and helps us keep the operating budget down. So it's captured here as a capital and one-time expense, but the way we're paying for it, we've sort of operationalized the debt. Well, there's also a UV system replacement that is getting very expensive to maintain. It is beyond its life expectancy. That is at the indoor pool. There's scorekeeping equipment for the indoor pool and replastering of the children's pool, which is overdue. There's WCC field repairs, which were actually budgeted last year. This is a capital rollover because they've not been able to get the contractor out there to perform the work. So that's a capital rollover. The dehumidification unit, that's also a capital rollover. We paid a 25% deposit on that unit, but we will actually experience the capital outlay in the next fiscal year, so we have to budget for it. Meeting center stage replacement. We got a 15-year-old stage that being taken up and down for 15 years is falling into disrepair. There's the capital rollover for the Rock House renovations. That facility continues to be closed, and we budgeted just a little bit in case we don't get all of that paid for in the current fiscal year. Jackson home window replacement. Homestead lighting installation, Homestead log structural repairs, windows for this building, Public Works salt storage facility. You all have heard me talk a lot about that. We hope to get most of that constructed before this fiscal year is over. This was a mandate from the Virginia Department of Transportation. There was a 3/4 ton crew cab dump truck that was approved last year that we still have not taken delivery of, and so we've just got to roll it over again. Heritage Walk Phase 2, that's $150,000. Phase 3, $153,000. That is only 20% of the project cost. VDOT is paying the other 80%. And then Heritage Walk Museum Connector, that is 20% of the anticipated engineering cost, and VDOT is paying 80% of that as well. That leaves us with a total capital and one-time use of reserves of $623,000, and a total operating use of reserves of $208,000. All right.
I think you're wearing the mic out.
Probably so. Hopefully not everyone else. Though. All right, this is the one I think folks are most interested in, but I don't think it's proper to talk about this in a vacuum. So we needed to set the stage. We need to help folks understand where the majority of the money is coming from, and then why you all are asking for a real property tax increase. General property taxes consist primarily of real estate, personal property, and machine and tools tax, with public service tax, penalty and interest, and mobile home taxes making up smaller shares. Combined, general property taxes make up only 12% of the total revenues needed to operate the town's general fund. If you recall in the previous slides, we looked at 18% for meals tax, 8.8% for lodging tax, and another 18% in categorical aid. So general property taxes only make up 12% of the entire general fund budget. Real estate makes up the largest portion of this category, and it makes up 9.62% of the general fund's revenue stream. And that assumes a 3% increase. When we look at the historical tax rates since 1980, in 1980, the tax rate was 28 cents per hundred. It currently sits at 18.5 cents per hundred. When it was 28 cents per hundred, we were coming out of, or perhaps still in, the highest inflation rates that we've seen in most of our lifetimes. And we're now at 40 years later surpassing those inflation rates. I think it's also important to talk about peer communities or surrounding and regional communities in our vicinity and look at their real property tax rates relative to the services they provide. Wytheville at 18.5% is considerably lower than the average of Pulaski, Christiansburg, Marion, Abingdon, Bluefield, and Rural Retreat, none of which have full-time paid fire and EMS staffs. Most of them are near double us in personal property tax and machine and tools tax. If you look at the revenues the town has generated from 2011 to 2021, we were basically flat. We generated about $80,000 in new revenue from 2011 to 2021. I put that $1,613,000 figure into an inflation calculator today, and we've lost the cumulative inflation since 2011 is 30%. So you would need 1.3 times that amount of money to fund 2,000 level services, yet we've increased services significantly. It doesn't work. The other thing I think it's important to do is to not just talk about your needs, but talk about the impacts that an increase will have on the average household, not even the average household, on any household. If we look at what a 3-cent increase will do, it'll generate $99,000 per penny, or $297,000. If you look at the column on the left, those are property values. The second column is what those property values pay in current real estate taxes. The third column is what it would go to if it would move to 21.5 cents. And then we just showed it as an annual difference and a monthly difference, just for perspective. A lot of people talk about their finances on a sort of a monthly basis. Pick a number, $200,000 home and land, you'll pay $370 now, you'll pay $430 after. That's $60 a year increase, or $5 a month. I'm not going to tell you what perspective you should have here. I just wanted you to be able to put yourself in any one of these circumstances and understand what you're asking these people to do. And I'm going to leave it there. I think I've said enough. When we get to the second reading of the budget, I'll go into more detail about water and sewer funds. But I think that pretty well covers it. I think you have a pretty good understanding. I'll answer any question you have, or any question from the audience. Thank you.
Thank all the council. Would like to thank all of management and everybody that has been helping daily for months and months and months on this, and they've really put their heart and soul into trying to give us information and the proper recommendation. So at this point, I will open it up to a public hearing. Remember, anybody that wants to speak is 5 minutes, state your name and your address. We'll go ahead and open that up. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to step up and speak specifically on this item agenda, which is considering a real property tax rate increase of 3 cents per 100 ordinance number 1423, setting real property tax rate for the town of Wytheville. Anybody that would like to approach, please come on up and state your name and address.
My name is Mark Rawlings, and my address is 320 East Withers Road. Appreciate Mr. Freeman's presentation, great detail, and a lot of good information in there that I was not aware of. But I'm just going to make the assumption that whether I'm right or wrong, that I represent the mean of the population of Wytheville. About half the population has more than me and is better off than me, and about half less. And my property taxes went up 40% from 2021 to 2022. And now, the very next year, you're pushing another 12% increase on me. And I'm not arguing with the revenues that we have. I'm not arguing with the expenses that we have. I'm just saying that I think that the majority of people in Wytheville have hit a ceiling. And just like the city, and also don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for this city. We have a city where the public safety is good. I watch the video clips on television. I see people getting kicked to death on the sidewalks. I see businesses shutting down because they have a damn law in place where people can go in and steal $1,000 worth of stuff without even being prosecuted. We don't have that. And so I look at things like we have to make personal choices just like the city does. And as a mean representative of the population, I'm to the point where now I'm making choices on where I spend my money and what I spend it on and how much I spend, because it's getting down to the point where I classify things as a survival expense, a public safety expense, and an other expense. And if it doesn't hit survival, and by that I mean food, clothing, and shelter, and I throw utilities into shelter because I happen to like heat in the wintertime. I like having food on the table. So food, a roof over my head, clothing. And so now I'm having to look at every expense and ask myself, do I need that to survive? Do I need that to stay alive through public safety? And if the answer is no, I don't, then I have to seriously consider eliminating. And so I think that the city is no different than the individual people that make up the city. And I think that each and every expense in the city needs to be examined on the basis of whether or not it's a survival expense or a public safety expense. If it's not, it goes into the other category and needs to have a different priority. Because, I'll just close out by saying that, and I'm not against any of the public services that we have in the city. They're all wonderful. Cultural, recreational, every one of them. But, when it comes down to putting food on the table or going swimming in a city swimming pool, I just know where my priorities are. And I would just ask the city to do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins.
Anybody else that would like to?
I guess I lied to the mayor earlier. As I was coming in, I told her I wasn't going to speak. I've gone over the budget in detail. Thank goodness it's online and can do it. I own some properties in a couple other towns. I can tell you right now, Wytheville is a bargain. Um, it's a well-run town. I don't like to pay more taxes, but I'm getting what I'm paying for. And I don't mind a 3-cent increase. Thank you.
Arthur Johnson, 240 Hillcrest Road. I'm blessed to live here in Wytheville. The 3% won't hurt me, but the 3% will hurt some people that are on a budget that can't pay for the medication. If they pay for the medication, they might not be able to have food to put on the table. Like I said, I'm blessed. My wife and I, and Candy, we're blessed. I'm blessed to live here in this town. I'm blessed to be able to work here for 22 years, but I'd like for you to also consider the people that might not be as blessed as I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Close.
Robert Wright, live at 250 Spring Meadow Drive. Kind of going off what this gentleman said, the 3% is not going to hurt me. Me and my wife are going to be able to absorb it. It's not a problem. But with the people with the fixed budget, I think you need to kind of look out for those folks. And I think a good way to do that is every town has a budget. Every town has expenses, especially right now. You had mentioned with the inflation and the job market, the supply and demand, it's hurting everybody across the country, in every town, big or small. There's other ways to find revenue for the town. I know myself that the Rec Commission was proposed to entice travel teams to come here to use our facilities, and it was denied. That revenue amounts to each team, and you're going to have a minimum of probably anywhere from 8 to 10 teams for each travel ball weekend or just on a single day, is $150 to $300 per team, $5 to $10 per admission per person. And you also have to factor in the fact of the concessions. If they were to give concessions at the ball games, not to mention the direct impact of the hotel taxes and restaurant taxes that you were talking about earlier, that when these folks do leave, before they leave, they're going to eat here at Wytheville. That's additional revenue that's not being explored. Each tournament can bring this town collectively anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per tournament. You can do 3 tournaments a week. Do the math. That adds up really quick. And that's revenue that this city is missing out on. In addition to that, I understand there's a huge glove company coming here that's bringing several thousand people to work. Where are they going to live? Our housing here is very, very limited. They're going to take their tax dollars, talking about the real estate taxes, they're going to take their tax dollars and move in another town because we don't have enough housing here. That's also lost revenue. Now, as far as the rec center in general, you had mentioned hardworking, dedicated people. Admittedly, I might be a little bit biased when it comes to the rec center. I was a football coach last year. We won the Super Bowl. Loved the kids, loved the town. We had a great time. But the rec center can be so much more. The mismanagement of the rec center is astounding. The culture that the management creates at the rec center respectfully, I'll say is abysmal. You guys have a high turnover rate at the rec center. And as anybody knows that if you run a business, high turnover rate costs you money. To lose somebody, a dedicated, experienced employee, because they don't work with the mentality of, I've been doing it this way for 15 years, and not have an open mind about how things done are now, and you lose good, dedicated employees like that, or quite frankly, fire them because you don't see eye to eye with them, it costs money to retrain people. It also costs productivity. And when you see high turnover rate in a certain job, business, family business, anything you go, you're going to have a low morality, which also affects productivity. So with that being said, I would just like you guys to look at maybe the rec center as a source of revenue. The kids deserve it. The coaches deserve it. The parents deserve it. And this town deserves it. The rec center's mismanaged, without a doubt. But we're also, with this town, indirectly with the rec center, the city is missing out on a lot of good investment and money that could really bring a lot of money into this town and help those people that can't afford this increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Mr. Wright.
And Mr. Wright, I think probably a friend of yours, maybe 6 months ago, that has the same passion that you have about bringing the teams in and doing concession stands, whatnot. And he had the pleasure of meeting with Dean Sprinkle at the community college, which kind of gave him some insight as to some of the hurdles that have to be overcome for that. And that's at the state level because those fields down there do not belong to the town. They belong to the community college, which is state level. So I listened in on a little bit of the dialogue and not sure where he went from his passion and if going forward with it or not. Certainly reach out with him. Please come up here, because otherwise we won't.
And again, like I said, this is, please, I'm not being disgruntled. He was my son that you were speaking to.
Oh, really?
Jack. Yeah, maybe, I don't know who you specifically spoke to, but he spoke to the rec commission.
It wasn't.
But he did bring it up that it was a good source of revenue because we all love this town. We're new to this town, but I moved here for a reason, because when my wife and I walked down Main Street, we fell in love with this town. So, it's just, I understand there's hurdles with everything, and anything that's worth having is not easy to get. If it's worth doing right, as the old verbiage says, do it right. Are there things that can be looked into? Yes, but it just seems like it just kind of went nowhere. And of course you have to coordinate with the state and things like that, but you can also look at private entities as far as funding, just with sponsorships. I know down, I think it's Abington or something, or a town close by, Food City sponsored their entire rec center. Didn't cost them a dime, but yet the city benefits from the revenue.
Well, I'll be more than happy. I know this gentleman. I have your name. Find out if you got anywhere with the community college and what his next step is, and just.
He's no longer with the rec center, so.
For this person, it wasn't.
Okay. I'm just, like I said, it was just something that, we had spoke about, that would be really good for the city. Like I said, the revenue for the restaurants, the hotels, hey, before they leave, let's go hit a restaurant, or if it's a 2-day tournament, well, they're going to have to stay in a hotel, and there's several nice hotels that are minutes away from the ball field. So like I said, I just think it's something that, it would, I think the little energy to go into it, to look into it, I think would really benefit the city long term. Thank you.
You said that the ball fields are not ours. like on page 18, there's like.
Correct.
sort of-
We manage and maintain the fields, but the property belongs to the state of Virginia. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, is anybody else that would like to speak to the open session? Heading, close this public hearing. We'll move forward for council to consider approve or deny the increase in the real property tax rate and consider adopting 1423 on first reading. But if council agrees that might go around the table and let each person share why they want to do this, why they want to vote this way. Say how you're voting. Just if you have a passion, you want to speak, and they could get their questions.
I don't mind speaking first. I'm not for the 3%, simply because I think maybe tax increase probably should have been done smallly over the years. I don't think it should be really reflected on the council to just go ahead and do a large sum. I know it is, large to some, maybe minimal to, but I just don't think we need to fill that gap right now, still in people trying to dig it out of the hole from COVID. The town does a tremendous job. We do have a lot of great things. I just don't.
I am not, or I stand with the people on this one. I have the opportunity to see people coming in and trying to pay taxes, and a lot of people have to determine whether they're going to eat or not. I will not let it be said of Councilwoman Candace Johnson that I had to cause somebody to choose as to whether or not they're going to have food on the table, as to whether or not they're going to have medication. I watched a lady walk out in tears because she had to go to the bank and borrow money to pay her tax because of a misfortune. Property taxes were increased, unfortunately, for our constituents. They pay town and county tax, and they were hit really hard. And I'm sorry, I will not vote for it. People put us here to be for them. We're not here for ourselves. And I know that we have finances and things that we have to cover. But right now, I'm not for it.
I have one more thing about. I really appreciate the gentleman coming up and speaking. One word that was sort of will stick with me is Bible.
I need to add one more thing. I noticed that the Davenport report said that we could also increase the lodging tax. Want to increase taxes on the people, the meals tax, and nobody bothered. I asked that we increase lodging. Nobody wanted to do that. So if fair is fair, they put in the report to increase all three, not just two. So if you're going to increase anything, you need to increase the lodging.
Those are not aware, we did increase the lodging tax. Years ago. I just want to say a few words myself. I thank everybody for stepping out this evening and coming and sharing everybody. It does makes it feel more like a meeting and more like we're working for. I do want to preface this by saying that not all council members were elected officials at the time that this Davenport study was talked about and then hardened on because therefore they don't get blamed for doing things that they weren't here to do, like in the meeting. A while back, council agreed with management to have the compensation financial review with respect to the town federal funds and the utility enterprise funds with the water and sewer water. The Davenport was chosen to do, but as Mr. Leonard mentioned, there are many recommendations in that offered in the packet, and I appreciate council going through that and trying to go from one end to the other and try to find something in the middle. Town needs to make adjustments to its structural operating imbalance by fiscal year 2025. At that time, town had identified, and when I say that time, that's the time when this study came out, 2.5 million of capital needs starting in 2024, and that money in with any building, it's goes in times. So the needs are that probably exchange or with better the person. If town cash funds these needs, it could draw the reserves on a yearly basis, and then that may require more drastic budgeting and the fiscal year 2024 to address these structural operating imbalances. So if the town's reserves are projected to offset structural operating imbalance, which unfortunately has gone on, especially with COVID and whatnot, as Mr. Freeman had alluded to, fortunately not as severe as we thought, to the end of fiscal year 2025. Then what? I mean, our savings are going to be going down. Over the years and decades, has been very protected of the town citizens and not increasing taxes as that slide had shown earlier. But at this time goes on, it requires more money taking out of reserves. Why do we not need the operating funds? Keep our citizens safe and to continue to provide a safe place to live and serve are they used to. Obviously, my sentences were not complete. Increase employee salaries as spoken to, and they continue to work. Employees can continue to work for our citizens so that they can answer to the citizens' needs. Inflation was brought up as reasons for the hole in the budget. And let's not forget COVID. It was mentioned. There was a video presentation that was council on COVID, and one slide stuck with me. And the presenter of this said, federal government will be just fine. They make money. The state will be great as a result of the money flowing from the feds. Counties will do fine because of the revenue stream to the state. Towns, they won't get it. They are not in the money stream. And that's why towns like ourselves have so much trouble trying to keep our revenues up. Only a few reasons why I feel, these are only a few reasons why I feel that we taxes at the time. I am also passionate about our citizens, but I'm also trying to take care of them on this end because if we don't start closing the hole in the budget, we will run down our reserves. Then what will we do?
Did you say lodging was right in 2019?
I said
2
something
years
like
ago.
that.
That's what I said. I think that,
And that was 4 years ago. And the Davenport ended it
by 20.
by 2020.
They also recommended
So-
5.8 cents in real estate. And I've been careful in saying to all of you, we have to be extremely careful about picking the parts we like and the parts we don't like. Meaning, in my opinion, that lodging tax needs to be considered as well. But it's a matter of whether or not you want to do them all in 1 year. This is half of the real estate, half, and one of the two, meals and lodging, this year.
Let
So
me
it's
be
halfway.
clear
I'm sorry, yeah.
About not picking what we haven't picked. You all chose the 2 you want to raise. I said in all fairness.
No, I understand, and I
All
wasn't
three.
challenging you on that, Ms. Johnson. I'm not challenging you on
So
it.
just-
I'm saying
Just
I've,
so we're clear on that.
I understand, and I'm not challenging you on that. What I'm saying is that the Davenport report recommends much more than 3 cents on real estate. It also recommended the penny on meals, the penny on lodging, the transfers from water and sewer. And you all can do whatever you want us, we'll do whatever you want us to do if the collective will is there to do it. If the collective will is not there to do it, then our hands are tied. There's no need in us coming to you with proposals that won't move.
But we have moved most.
You've moved most of
We
them.
have moved most.
That's correct.
This is, I think, the only one we sort of.
I think so.
That's pretty good, consider past records. Yay.
Do we have anything to help the people that are less fortunate than we are?
Mike, can I ask you to speak to that one about veterans, others for real estate taxes?
I'm Mike Stevens. I'm 283 Mill Drive. No. Yes, we've got a program it's a state program for veterans that are 100% totally disabled, according to the Veterans Administration. They get 100% of their taxes. And then also we have one for elderly and handicapped. And we currently give up to $100 of their taxes off each year. They have to apply for it at the county, and they you apply over there, they determine whether you're eligible, and if they're eligible there, then they're also eligible here for it.
And that the amount of the offset is determined by internal policy here.
Correct, yeah, and
So
we
you
raised
can-
it,
you
when
can
we
do
went to 19.5 2 years ago, we increased it from $75 to $100 to offset that increase.
How is that actually like, how is that advertised? Do we put it on, do we put it like on Facebook and the newspaper and things like that? I don't know.
The county, Ms. Taylor, you want to? She had it in her newsletter to tell everybody. I don't know how many people apply because, like I said, they apply at the county, and we do not know until we get our tax assessments. So, but yeah, she had it in her newsletter, all the requirements, who to call, and so forth. So,
And we can certainly advertise that sooner, make more, shine more light on that, for certain.
And maybe put it on the water bill, maybe, I don't know.
That it went in the water bill.
Well, I mean,
2 or 3
okay,
years.
do you still list items on the water bill?
yeah, we have a very small, a short message on there. So,
Maybe it could be listed on that, I don't know. Just,
Our website, your newsletter.
Certainly. I mean,
it's
we
a
can
certain
put
time
it in the
of the year
newspaper
that
for that
they
matter. I mean,
have
we
to
can put it wherever you
apply.
want it.
So, I'm not so sure county sends that out, the information. I found out about it and about it, and he talked to the county. We tried to do it at a certain, like at the end of the year, because they only have like a 2-month registration period, and I think it's March or
February,
something.
March, I think, yes, ma'am.
And then once they're approved from the county, then it's just an automatic here. So
well, and maybe,
if there's any other ideas how to get it out there, that'd be great.
well, maybe the, or the rec, I know they have a vision board. So, maybe, maybe where some elderly, even restaurant, maybe some little business or something, sitting on tax places.
And we can do an insert in this upcoming tax bill to tell them what the dates are to apply for next year.
Thank you.
No problem.
There, you don't have anything available for single mothers and working families that
No, ma'am.
with fixed incomes and budgets. You don't have
No, ma'am.
anything to offer them,
Just the elderly and the handicaps.
or widows.
No, ma'am. Unless they're age 65 or older and meet those
Or the
guidelines.
widows of veterans.
Except
If those
for,
are veterans, then they qualify.
yes,
There are widows who have lost people at young ages.
if
And-
their
and
spouse
they're
was,
widows,
100% disabled,
Yeah.
the spouse would.
or they're not military widows.
Yeah, but so, as he said, if they're 100.
Right, but there are widows who have lost people that are not military widows. So
I think-
is
But
there?
what he's
I think,
saying
I
is
think
you
it's
don't
important to
have to be
keep
a
in mind that
military.
this is a provision of the state code, and if there's not enabling legislation that allows us to do it, we can't.
Exactly.
So this program is enabled by the Code of Virginia. And if there's not something in there that says a town can't, and I'm not saying that there's not something that would allow us to expand that program, but I just want to make clear that if there's not specific enabling legislation, we can't just decide to get that.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
I'd just like to add to the comments that sometimes it's good to have an outside firm to come in and look internally at what we're doing, particularly with our finance. And Davenport made certain suggestions that we need to raise real estate rates 5.8 cents over 2 budget cycles. They also recommended we need to raise meals 1% and lodging 1%. And I'm in agreement with Ms. Johnson. Perhaps we do need to look at raising lodging. Would that require a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes. So if we decided to do it, we're going to have a public hearing first and go through that process. Okay. All right. Being said that, is the 3 cents a good investment, and will it provide a good dividend? That's what I'm asking you, and I've asked myself the same question. And I believe it is. I can sleep at night knowing three things. We've got a police department that's accredited, professional, a heck of a good chief, and they've asked to increase their budget by $418,000. I want them to be funded. We need the police department. The fire department, 24/7, fully paid staff. If my house is on fire or my neighbor's house is on fire, I know my fire department's going to be there within 3 minutes. They're going to help save a house or a building or some sort. And I can sleep at night knowing we got an EMS department that's 24/7 with one of the best EMS directors in the state of Virginia and North Carolina, Mr. Lineberry. And we've increased their budget by 86,000, excuse me. So for that reason, will it provide, this 3 cents provide a good dividend? Yes, ma'am, it will. It will. We're still, even if we raise it 3 cents, we're still going to have to use revenue money to balance the budget. And if we keep using the revenue money, reserve money rather, I'll get it right in a minute, we're not going to have reserves very long. We've got great museums in this town. They've got budgets as well. We talked about the Wellness Center tonight. The Public Works, one of the best departments we've got going is Public Works. They pave, they remove snow and ice. We even had to increase their budget by $213,000. We take care of all the cemeteries. We just got so many things going. Community programs. We got great employees. We just helped the employees out with a little bit of insurance help and salary increases, cost of living increase. But it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money. And yeah, it's convenient to go and raise the meals. It's convenient to raise the lodging. But there's going to come a time when that ceiling will be met, and we can't do that all the time. We can't. We're going to have to take responsibility. I'm a citizen of this town. I'm retired. I'm old, and I'm on a fixed income, just like you all are. These are tough decisions, but we're going to have to start making these tough decisions tonight. We just can't continue using our reserves. And that's why I think the 3 cents is going to pay off a good dividend, and to keep all these programs that we got going.
I do have a question. Did you say 410,000?
418.
Okay, so would that exclude the $363,000 that they're getting in grant money? Or is it an additional amount?
I took it off of one of the forms that Mr. Freeman gave us.
And by no means is it, no pun intended, towards the police department. They do an outstanding job.
Absolutely.
So I just I want to get some clarification.
Outstanding job, and that's why we need to keep funding them.
Well, I'm just I want to know because they're getting grant money, and if that entire 418,000 that you're talking about,
I believe that figure's not included. Okay.
That's grant money. That's money that's given to us.
Yeah.
I think just to, I'll try to help clarify between you all. I think, Ms. Patterson, I'm not mistaken, you're just stating that the difference in last year's budget versus the proposed budget.
That's where the difference is.
And so that would be a difference in proposed expenditure, and you've got to match it with revenue. Now, those are going to fluctuate from year to year. The grant revenues, the DCJS revenue, that I think it's 205, we get that every year. The ARPA revenue, I think, was 153 or 158. That is a new one. That is paying for operating expenses that were already requested, meaning it's buying 2 new police vehicles, it's replacing 10-year-old service weapons, it's buying ballistic vests, and it is buying utility vehicles. So yes, the DCJS grant is there, but those needs were there before the DCJS grant. They basically let us replace costs that we were already budgeting for, because this money just came sort of materialized out of thin air. And Joey, I think, Chief Hatch had about 3 weeks to get that grant together. And it's just paying for the two vehicles that were already, last year they requested 4 vehicles. Enterprise could not get us 2 new lease vehicles for 28 months. We ended up having to buy 2. And I told Chief to ask for 2 this next year, and we try to get them funded. So the DCJS grant is funding needs that already exist.
And then the 105,000.
We get that every year. Yeah.
Good to know. We want them to be funded and trained and well equipped. But I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
So that everybody can sleep well at night, why don't you do 1.5?
I got one more question. Polly said you couldn't support 3 cents. Can I ask you what kind of number you look?
Well, I've mentioned that time and time again. And sometimes I don't know, in Sometimes it seems like some things, yes, I suggest, I don't know if you all agree or not, but I have told Mr. Freeman from 2%, 2%.
And I have relayed that,
No,
to be clear.
that's fine. And I'm not
I
saying
understand.
right, but, and I apologize, but
No, you're
on
fine.
that. But, it's just, I can't go and do probably what should have been done time and time. The people behind us, to me, I don't think we're always maybe responsible. But yeah, I know we're supposed to probably try to be responsible. But I mean, I know are going to be responsible, but I don't think we should do it just like that. I know the Bolton study suggested that maybe that a study should have been done a long time ago. I just can't agree, and I can go with the 2%. That's as far as, because we do have phenomenal employees. I also said I would never want to raise taxes unless it was critical. We did do the study. We did opt to do the over a year time versus pay the employees this year and then next year. To me, it was the employees' money all along. Shouldn't have been held back. But I can do with the 2% because we did take that leap and go ahead and pay for our good, remarkable employees to keep them, besides hopefully not going other places. All employees down from trash collector to higher up, Ms. Freeman, Holton, Ms. Corbin, Stevens, all the departments. It takes all the departments to run the town, from the least of these to higher. So I can deal with 2%. Yes, ma'am. And thank you for
Station. Motion.
I move that we do the 3% this year and adopt ordinance number 1423 on first and final.
Now we're just considering the property tax rate ordinance. So we have a motion, we have a second. Motion and a second. There any further dialogue?
Mayor Taylor, I'd like to ask the council to consider just 2% and do it over a period of time. 2% this year, see where everybody's at, after everybody's trying to recoup from COVID, which I hate using that word. But I would just like to ask the council to consider 2%.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, 2%. Have a new motion. 2%. Second. That has the lack of a second. So we are back with the motion for a second for 3%. We'll go ahead and call vote. Coleman?
Aye.
Patterson,
Taylor, aye.
Johnson. Atkins.
Very much. Next on the agenda is consideration of ordinance number 1322, the budget year 2024, on second but not final reading. I'm going to present Ms. Freeman, and then after that, I'll open up the hearing.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. And thank you all for the thoughtful consideration. I know that was difficult. I think I've pretty well covered the general fund. And I don't think we've had anyone come in since we covered the general fund. So I'm going to move on to the water and sewer funds. I'll I'll start out with this slide again that demonstrates that the Water and Sewer Fund is, historically speaking, the largest expenditure by function, and it is entirely within the Water and Sewer Fund. You all have already passed a rate increase, and since the slide's here, I'll just touch on it and show everyone in the audience that the base rate went from $20 to $21. There was no change for users of 0 to 25,000 gallons of water. Most household users are in the 5,000 or less range. This only impacts about 124 customers, other than the $1. There are a number of capital expenditures and capital and one-time expenditures within the water fund. Get myself to my notes here. Within this, we have a replacement of high pressure temporary patch with a permanent replacement, which is a safety concern. As it was brought up in the last meeting, that's something that if we can get it done before the new fiscal year budget takes over, you won't actually expend this money next year. So I have tasked the water treatment staff with seeing if that can get done now because it is a safety concern. There's actuator replacement. This is a program that the department requested as part of their capital improvements or part of the CIP. They're asking for actuator replacements, basically one per year over the next 5 years. This equipment is quite old and sometimes doesn't work correctly. They've asked for streaming current monitors. The ones they have currently are broken, and this is actually a compliance issue with the Virginia Department of Health. Filter inspection and assessment. The same type of filters that we use at the Reed Creek treatment plant are the same filters that were designed into the New River Regional Water Authority plant. And they have actually experienced a failure in one of their filters, and our staff feels like it's important to inspect our filters and make sure they're working properly. There's a storage structure request for the landfill. We do have some equipment that needs to be segregated away from the public works due to space constraints and the need for the new salt shed at the public works. So they've asked for a storage structure at the old landfill site. The Lots Gap tank is a $1.6 million capital expenditure. That is a fraction of the actual cost of that project. We do have $2.5 million in DHCD funding coming to that project, and then also Wythe County is a significant funding partner for that. But our portion of that tank is $1.6 million, and we are financing that with VML Vaco Finance. I got an email today stating that they will be opening the proposals from the banks tomorrow, so we should know something in the next few days as to what type of rate we're looking at there. We're estimating 4.5% for 30 years, 20 years, and that will cost about $120,000 a year. Note in the upper right-hand corner, there's a water fund debt schedule that shows that we do have some debt reduction. We have some projects that will be seeing their final payments in 2025 and 2026. So we do have some debt reduction relief coming up in 25 and 26, and the new debt will fit in there nicely. Water storage tank inspection. This is a every 5-year requirement. It's about $8,000 and it's due. We need to increase the mixing of the Fairview tank. Currently, when water sits in these tanks and there's not a lot of high demand usage on them, the water will tend to stratify and you have better water quality at different layers within the tank. And it's important for the elimination of haloacidic acids, which are byproducts of the chlorine disinfection process, to keep the water moving and commingling with new molecules and reducing that effect. The 120 water agreement, Elaine mentioned that when she was talking about the master fee schedule. We That is a lead service line inventory. It is a mandate from the Virginia Department of Health, and we have until fall of '24 to get that completed, so we will need to budget for it this year. That is primarily the capital and one-time expenses within the water fund. Sewer fund, here again is the rate schedule for the sewer fund. There's a $1 per user base rate increase from $13 to $14. There is no change in the rate from 0 to 25,000 gallons. And then some modest increases. We've had 10% across the board increases before, but there's some modest increases from the 25,000 gallon and up sewer users. The wastewater fund also has some capital one-time expenses, including rotors and stators for sludge pumps. Sometimes these things go out and it's very difficult to get them, so we need to be replacing and having spares on hand. They need exhaust fans and ductwork in the chlorine tank room. This is another safety concern that if we can get this work done immediately, we're going to, but we're budgeting for it just in case the check writing occurs in the next fiscal year. Replacement drive units for secondary clarifiers. Keep in mind that these were installed in 1993. They run 24/7, 365, and have since 1993. We have seen some issues with those, and when all the pumps are the same manufacturer under the same stress, when one goes, it's a pretty good sign that the rest are right around the corner. That was the first asterisk. The second asterisk is this sewer I&I rehabilitation project. It's actually a $1.85 million project that we got 75% of the funding from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. This is to remove infiltration and inflow from the sewer system. This is your illicit connections, downspouts, and things like that go into the sewer treatment system. Driving up treatment costs because everything that comes in we have to treat before it's released. We are actually financing the 25% of that project cost, and that funding is also going through the VML-VACO financing. That we're financing that. We're anticipating 4.5% for 20 years, so it'll cost about $55,000 a year. Let me be clear, all three of the items that are listed with an asterisk are being financed. We did, at the request of council last week, remove some of the smaller items from financing, and we'll just cash purchase those items. That includes the 4 auto dialers, the exhaust fans, and the rotors and stators.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The Lithia Road pump station repair. Keep in mind that Lithia Road pump station and also the Industry Road pump station do receive all of Pepsi's effluent. It's a very acidic effluent. It also has a high sugar content. These things are very, very difficult. It also has because of the sugar content, has a certain viscosity to it. It's very difficult on pumps and things like that. So that will need some attention. We do have a significant amount, about roughly $310,000 in debt reduction coming off in 25 and 26. The proposal in front of you will only add about $55,000 a year to our debt service payments. And with that reduction, we still have significant amount of borrowing power and the ability to fund large capital projects without significantly increasing the operating budget. Keep in mind, though, that the sewer fund is challenged financially. So it'd be really nice to get several years of capturing most of that debt reduction to alleviate the pressures on the sewer fund. This is just a summary that was published in the newspaper of the general fund expenditures by department. I won't focus on this because it's too small, I think, for everyone to see anyway. This was published in the paper, but I thought it would be appropriate to show it. This is the general fund revenues, and we've covered pretty much everything there already. These are the water on the left, water fund revenues over expenditures, and then the wastewater fund revenues over expenditures on the right. Again, these were published. And then this is the total budget in aggregate by all funds. Mayor Taylor, Council, that is all I have for the second reading. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go ahead and open up public hearing. Anybody that wishes to speak on public hearing to give comments on budget ordinance.
It's really not a statement, it's more clarification. I understand that the glove company, when they agreed to come here, that they were going to give an investment to the electrical and water sewer grid and infrastructure of Wytheville. Is that true or not true? How does that work? I just wanted a clarification on that.
Not true.
Okay, so how did that? So when they came here, I initially read that, you know, hey, we have this big company coming. They're going to make an investment in our electrical and water sewer infrastructure. I just wanted to clarify if that's actually true or where did that come from? Because I read that in the paper.
Well,
And you don't believe everything you read,
Sure,
so I just
sure.
want to clarify. So that was it.
Yeah, I'll come up here. Well, actually, I have a mic here. So to be clear, the only infrastructure, well, the only utility infrastructure that we provide to Progress Park is water. The county actually serves Progress Park for sewer, so they'll be receiving Blue Star's sewer. We'll be providing the water. We did get $3 million from the federal EDA, which is the Economic Development Agency. The recipient of that grant was actually the New River Regional Water Authority, which we are about close to a 50% partner in. So we did get federal money to help upgrade that plant. That's a $7.8 million project. The New River Regional Water Authority has agreed. This is Wytheville, Carroll, and Wythe. The authority has a little bit of surplus, so they have agreed and did last week to make the first debt service payment on the treatment plant expansion. That's $312,000, and it's coming due. That was a big help to the town of Wytheville because we have a lot of infrastructure that's going in to serve Blue Star with water, primarily through the Lots Gap tank that we showed you all, which is a partnership with Wythe County, and then the expansion of New River Regional Water Authority. So there's a $3 million EDA grant. Sorry, my watch is listening to me. We have a $3 million EDA grant, federal grant that is helping with the plant expansion. We got a $2.5 million grant from the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development that's going toward the Lots Gap tank. Wythe County came to the table with money, and also the Virginia Economic Development Partnership came to the table with money for the Lots Gap. So the key is that we've got to get that big water customer online and start generating the revenues to pay that debt service off. But we don't provide electrical in any way, and we don't provide sewer. They're just a big water customer at this. Well, they're not a water customer at all. Because we hope within a year they'll be a big one. I hope that helps.
Any other questions, concerns? Anybody want to speak during public hearing? We close this publicly. And consideration by town council to approve ordinance 22 second final reading by a motion, call vote. Here we just
Atkins, no.
Bolton. Taylor, yes.
Let's take the motion first. Right? I move that we approve order 1422 on.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Apologize, I'll start all over again.
No, ma'am. Atkins, no.
Johnson, no.
Taylor, yes.
Dennison, yes.
Gilman, yes.
Next on the agenda is consideration request of PTU to close Main Street between Fourth and First Streets, Caswell and Church Streets, between Spring and Monroe Streets on Saturday, December 9th, a.m. to 10 p.m. for Christmas to Remember event. We do have a little bit of a staff presentation for that. Open.
So this evening, I am presenting the street closure request by Devoted to You, a Christmas to Remember event. As you recall, at the last town council meeting, this application was on the agenda. And essentially, at that meeting, we heard concerns from the mill wall. If you recall, as a result of that, you directed myself as staff to set up a facilitation meeting between the event organizers and a representative of the Millwall Theater, Mr. Jeff Potts. We had that meeting, that facilitation meeting, about a week ago, and the result of which is in your packets. Essentially, we tried all kinds of angles to come up with a compromise for both of those parties to leave the room agreeable. The only thing that we could come up with was a revision to the street closure map, and that map is in your packets. It's also up here on the screen. That can come off. Essentially, what you'll see is over there in front of the Millwall Theater, the event organizers have agreed to work with the town police department to set up a parking area reserved for the Millwall Theater. On December the 9th, which is when this is to occur, is the 1-year anniversary of the Millwall Theater, and there was concerns about whatever event they were going to have on that Saturday night to celebrate that 1-year anniversary. And so this was the map that we came up with to present to town council. This evening, we have the event organizers here. If you have any questions for them, and I believe I also saw Jeff, who's here as well. I know this is not going to be an easy decision for you all, but essentially you'll need to decide whether you are going to approve the street closure in light of the Millwall Theater's concerns. And with that being said, I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
So I think the opportunity for the who are applying for this to speak or have any questions, concerns, or statements.
I don't usually speak, so I just want to say one thing. I had a business on Main Street, and I am for businesses on Main Street, and me and my family created this out of the goodness of our heart to try to help bring revenue to the street. And I want to work with all the businesses so that they have the opportunity to make money and bring revenue to the street. And we're doing this out of the kindness of our heart. And we just want a family event that we have carried the last 2 years that has been very successful. And we just want to continue this on. And so whatever we need to do to create this and bring it to, that's my heart is for family and for businesses. And I want to continue to help businesses not only at Christmas time, but I would like to help them all year round to try to help them stay in business.
How are y'all? So I actually went through all of downtown.
Would you mind stating your name?
Trevor Riggins, sorry. I actually went through downtown, and I have copies if you guys want them. To every downtown business that was open that I could. Just as proof to town council that every business that I went to, there was about 29, all appreciate our event and all want it to continue to happen every year. In that packet, you'll see signatures of owners and managers and the business name that they're associated with, saying that they would like our event to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Holden, I would like to just for clarification one more time. Due to you, they followed all of the proper procedures, did everything they're supposed to do with that the town has set forth. Am I correct?
Currently, the only guidelines that we have is that they first bring their application to the Safety and Events Committee for review and approval. They have met that requirement. And essentially, that's all we have on the books at this time.
But they followed that
Yes,
correctly.
yes, ma'am. But I will add that as it's written in our town code, the town council does have control over all the streets and right-of-ways, and you all have discretionary power to approve or deny anything that happens on our streets at any time.
Hey, good evening. I'm Paul Riggins. Thank you all for considering this event to be held again here in with the town of Wytheville. I will say that one particular note is that with December night, please note that the 9th doesn't occur every Saturday in December. It only occurs one time, say every 4 years. So please keep that in mind when it comes to your vote, that this year, yes, it is a challenge for the Millwall, and we understand that. That's why we've presented a different route or a different way to allow them to have the spaces that were discussed and desired for that area to provide them for their event as well during this time. But I would add that, next year, December 9th is on a Tuesday. I don't know obviously it's way too early for planning on that, but we're sticking to the Saturday, the second Saturday of every December. And we want to continue to move this to an annual event as we have for the last 2 years. And we strive for a sense of pride and belonging for the community to be a part of something and to feel like they're a part of something as well. And that's why we started hosting this event. We were a business on Main Street. There's still a business that these individuals are a part of. But I would ask that you just consider that as well and consider the impact to the town as well for tourism. As you all know, Chautauqua is a very large festival and a very well-known festival. Now, we are not a Chautauqua. We are not that big. We're just starting out. But that doesn't mean we can't be in 10 years, So I'd ask just to consider our future as well as a part of this town and what we're trying to strive for. Obviously, the Millwall is here and here to stay, and we are great with that. But we have to find a common ground to be able to work together, and we would just strive to see if we could do that and to be able to still host the event that we have already been here hosting for the last 2 years successfully. We're creating vendor opportunities. Businesses that may not have a brick and mortar store on Main Street or even downtown, even part of this, central location, have the ability to get a booth at our event and present their products, present their items, and showcase what they can do. So, we're not turning away local businesses. We're not, trying to impede on the businesses that are there. We invite them to do promotions during our event, to help bring customers into their buildings, into their brick and mortars that they do have, to provide additional income for them. Now, I know Trevor was unable to acquire some specific financial data from each individual business because obviously that's their business. But we were able to discuss that with one or two businesses that did say year over year they have had an increase on this day because of this event. So I appreciate the time. Again, I know you guys have had a very long evening, and I just ask that we could come to some kind of agreement on this event, and we would just greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Is that okay, Mayor Taylor? Okay, I just want, I think I remember when you all started this a couple years ago, you all did say that you want it to be an annual event.
That's correct.
And I do recall, I think last meeting, or when we talked, that some may have had some financial gain, some may not. And I think I said, well, I really don't think, I mean, that's good in a way, but also it's good for the community to help families. It really
Exactly.
shouldn't be, it should be a moneymaker, but it also should be for the memories as well.
Well, and that's when we created the event. COVID had just kind of relaxed. So our intent for this event was to bring something where people can come together, similar to what you see in Roanoke with their Dickens of a Christmas. Obviously we're not that big yet, but that's where our goals are, and to bring the community together in a way that they can let their hair down, relax a little bit, enjoy some time with their kids and with their family right at the Christmas season when it's always stressful. There has to be things out there that we can do to provide to the community to allow them to relax and enjoy, and have it be considered and appreciated by the town and the hard work that the town puts into things as well. It's just one of those focuses that we have as a community-driven event. Again, we're just majority is, like Tanya had said, a family, but we all have other interests in other businesses and things like that. Again, they have businesses on Main Street, and we're striving to better the community, and that's the focus here. Thank you.
Paul, before you sit down, help me out a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Main Street starting on 4th.
Yes, ma'am.
When do you propose to close the Main Street? At 10 a.m.?
That will be closed at 10 a.m., yes. But that area for the VIP parking will, what we were recommending is that it be open for parking specifically for and regulated just for the Millwall in that area. And that goes essentially from 4th Street up to the Heritage Walk is what you're seeing there.
And you'll open this portion before 6 p.m.?
We'll remain that as closed, but it is up to the Millwall how they would like to proceed in ushering their patrons in to that area, because it will be there will be availability for them to move traffic in and out of that area as they so choose. And that's because the Public Safety Board or committee decided to close that section as well due to the risk of additional people for the event trying to park in that area. And then that would be obviously a negative for the Millwall group and their ability to have VIP or their patrons park in that area.
Well, there's only about 20 spots to park on both sides of Main Street. You're talking about 22 spots for the Millwall to park. If they've got a sold-out show that night, 22 won't go too far.
We have public parking.
Public parking is down on Spring. Is there?
Absolutely. And let me just say that the reason it's listed there as a VIP parking area is because Jeff had expressed in our meeting that there were, very valuable or there were additional individuals that they wanted to make sure the parking was available for. That may be elderly folks or their VIP constituents that provide for the Millwall.
So the only way to come in is that way, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It's going to be hard to make. I see you making a turn and parking here, but come from this direction and swinging in. That's not ideal, is it?
It may not be ideal, but it does provide parking space.
And then it's going to be hard getting out, too. Yeah.
Well, the street is wide enough that you can actually back out and pull out on either side of the street there. So the main street is wide.
Jeff, what time is the show over that night? Do you have any idea?
Typically, we start at 7:30, and they're about 2 hours before.
I don't know, I just see people and cars, and to me, that's not safe. Is there any other allowance for parking for the theater on, continue down 4th Street? I'm just trying to find, this doesn't look like a real good safe solution, particularly for the mill wall, I want both of you to have great events.
Understand.
I honestly do.
And I think, mentioned, if anybody explored the idea down at the.
Below the mill walls.
Did anybody mention that?
There was a discussion around that, but apparently there is no budging on that. Jeff can probably speak better than that than I can. Yeah.
And, I mean, because there's golf carts. It's right up through there.
Sure.
I mean, that to me would be.
And they could use the Heritage Walk to
Heritage
get
Walk.
around. Right. Yeah. So
But there wasn't.
there wasn't much discussion about that, to be honest. It did come up. I do recall it coming up, but I think it was a short discussion. So
Hold on, there is parking on 4th Street. There is parking on Church Street. There is a parking lot on Spring and 4th. And we have the parking lot out here that this building sits on, and the parking lot down the street.
And again, I think the focus was for the VIP parking was for elderly folks and others that, had to be close to the, obviously if that's all 500 people, then that's a challenge. But the idea was that VIP parking was more for those individuals.
And another thing it said in the report that it would be the responsibility of the mill wall to take care of their ticket holders, the VIP. That's going to take manpower. More manpower than you got?
Yeah.
And I think they would provide that.
I'm not sure if you shared my response. So we had a meeting, and I support their event wholeheartedly. The issue just comes down to logistics of what our business model is. And my problem isn't at all with what they're trying to do. I think the more events in downtown, the better. My issue looking at, the big picture is I have 4 holiday Saturdays, and in any business, that is your bread and butter. That's why they're doing this. That's why you guys are willing to close Main Street, because you believe closing Main Street creates a better economic catalyst for our businesses down there. But what this just does to our business model in our busiest time of year is it handicaps what we can do. And it's just particularly highlighted this year because it's our 1st year anniversary. And as I said, the solution, if I had it, could just be to change my anniversary date, but I can't. As we're talking about logistics, part of the problem is their event cleanup runs into the time my event would start. So theaters normally exist because businesses around us that aren't in that hospitality industry aren't open at 6:30, 7 o'clock when people are looking for parking. There's plenty. When the show gets out at 9:30, you're not dealing with other folks. It's not about their event. It is just about the fact that Main Street can so easily get closed, and that is a major disruption to what the Millwall Theater exists to do. I don't want to get in here and litigate things, but if you're talking economic development, a sold-out performance for us will generate about $20,000 in ticket revenue. So National Independent Venue Association, I quote them all the time, $12 per dollar spent on admission gets spent by our neighbors. So you're talking about $120,000 of economic impact just because I have one single show. You just got talking about hotel room taxes and food and beverage taxes. I can show you what I do in a day in food and beverage taxes. I'm curious what they did. Did that increase that bottom line? That's a huge part of what we're doing, and I don't want to litigate those things. My point is simply that if you're going to celebrate Christmas 2 weekends in a row, I have a feeling you're going to see a request for the next 2 weekends to close down Main Street as well. So that's really just it. If that's what we're trying to do, let's do it.
Can you state your
name? Yes, ma'am. Jeff Potts. And I do own a home at 285 South 12th Avenue, so I'm one of you. Thank you.
Well, no, I know you were with other people.
Mr. Riggins, before we I don't know if anybody else, some people. But there are a few questions that I have, and I also walked the street for 1.5 days trying to get more people open, just like you did. And I'm going to start at one end and go to the other. So just as Vice Mayor had mentioned, I was a little bit concerned about safety and sort of in a different way that she mentioned, because I feel like even though we're going to have those two areas plugged off, how are we going to keep pedestrians from walking in that area anyway? Because, we are what we are, and just like with car shows and everything, they're parked there, everybody's free to go back and forth. That's one of my concerns there. The way you have it blocked off, I'm not going to call storefront names, but there are, I think, 3 storefronts that are from the that I was able to talk to, besides the medical buildings, if you will, for that.
Sure.
So they were a little bit concerned. They had one of them had a really good year last year and the year before. The other one did not have a good year last year, because even though it was supposed to, it was supposed to be blocked off like at 4th Street, it was moved up. Therefore, people didn't come down to that particular one. And so both of them have a concern with this, because they're not going to, people usually won't walk down through. One of them said, "Oh, well, I'll still be open, but I'll probably have to get my own music to kind of move people down through there." Going up a little bit.
So can I respond to the questions that you have at this point? Because you're throwing a lot at me there at once. So on the first item, the safety, we presented this to the safety committee. They reviewed the information, and this was in conjunction with their approval for that. So I think we should consider that. The police department was there. Obviously, there's quite a few in that committee. And I believe that should speak a little bit for itself there, as far as safety. As far as the pedestrians walking through that area, obviously we can support with signage to help mitigate that. We're not going to stop people from walking through there. That's just not realistic. But we can definitely help mitigate by doing some signage and saying the event stops at this point and starts at this point. And that this area is designated for the Millwall. We can do things like that to help with that as well. And we're willing to help with that.
Haswell Street, you have 4 buildings on here, but there's more than that. But one of them's going to be closed for good of June. It seems like I got a little different response than here. It's not that they're not willing to have the event, because they all of them said that last year this was not the first year. They just did not have the increase, and they just felt like vendors that were in that area maybe impacted that for them.
Sure. I would also state that, yes, we do close off the streets, but most of the town, most of the businesses on Main Street are closed by no later than 2:00. So by having our event, that extended their hours, which in turn gave them revenue that they would not normally see.
I would like to say something. They follow the procedure that we require. I'm not here to pick them apart.
No, but
let me finish, please. Let me finish.
I apologize.
I'm not here to pick them apart. We determine whether or not they are within the guidelines. And they are within the guidelines. And it would be unfair. I mean, go back a few meetings ago when you did a consent agenda and approved a whole bunch of permits.
You all unanimously approved
We
those.
did. I'm not saying that I didn't. Let me make that clear. They were approved. And so to sit here and pick them apart is wrong. And it is not fair. They followed procedure. They followed procedure. And you've approved other permits. What they are doing is bringing our community together on a whole. On a whole. Not just one group of people or this group of people or that group of people. They're bringing people together on a whole. So to pick them apart, they were not selfish, they were selfless in trying to work out their permit. They've not showed any selfishness whatsoever. They are willing to work so that both events can go on. We're not here to pick them apart, and it is wrong to do that.
I don't think I'm picking them apart. I do this with every single.
You didn't do it with the last permits. You didn't do it. Can we pull the record, for the record, can we go back to those minutes and see if we did that? Because I don't think we did. It's not fair.
Continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Edith and Wilson Hotel, they're always very funful to want to be a part of everything. I had a question basically about, and I think they've done this before, but blocking off just a side street where their main thing is, where the main customers come to the side.
Yeah, we have not had any issues with the hotel. We've worked with them for the last 2 years, and they've committed on that sheet to work with us again this year. They have a back parking lot, and their traffic flows through that area.
So if they're okay with you blocking that, what about the bank?
Again, with the bank parking lot as well, you could circle around after you run through the ATM because you're still in the bank's parking lot. You could do a circle and go back out the side entrance that's on the side there, which was, I would assume you're talking about First Community.
Yeah, First Community.
Yeah, so you, yeah, right.
The ATM comes right up to the.
It's not right up to the street. If you actually look, it's actually connected to their what are they called? I'm sorry.
Tellers?
Yeah, to their teller windows, to their different lines there. It's on the end there, and they can go through that, turn around, and go back out the side entrance as well, which would be the adjacent street to Main Street. I
walked around to all the businesses and got them all to sign it, and I showed them all the new map, showed them where things would be blocked off. I was transparent as possible. I spoke to you. Had a that were great. If I was closing it out, they had no.
And that's why I'm asking questions,
Sure.
because as I said, I didn't get to speak to everybody.
I got,
I appreciate that.
I had no guards on that sheet. Were showed them the map, showed them what was going to be going on. They said, "We're great with the exposure."
Appreciate you doing that.
No problem. Thank you.
I do appreciate you. I mean, y'all see the cover.
We try. Thank you.
And there are other people that are assigned to speak to this event possibly?
Speakers,
Please come up to the.
in your approval first. My name is Jim Cohen. I live 1130 Cove. I am a resident. I'm coming to these meetings quite often. I kind of have just a comment and maybe a question. I'm feeling a lot of this or that hostility. It's really disturbing to me. Because my question is, if 500 people are going to go to a theater event, are they not going to take advantage of this event going on before it? I mean, that sounds insane. Do we have 500 people showing up to watch a Millwall event and just ignoring this whole event going on? What if the Millwall wasn't there? What if the event wasn't happening? Where would these people park? They'd figure it out. I don't understand why there's a this or that. I'm sure the Millwall's important, and I get it, but I think these people will survive. We're not talking about a bunch of idiots who can't figure out how to park and go watch two events. I don't understand what the problem is. Seems like we're wasting a lot of time. Especially mine. My daughter wants to get to the gym. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Anybody else from the theater that wanted to speak?
I'd like to speak, but
Name and address, please.
yeah, I know. It's Mark Bloomfield, 205 Cove Hills Drive, Wytheville. I just would like to remind everybody, it sounds like this is the third year of this event on the second Saturday in December. It's not. The first time the event was offered, it was on a Friday night as part of the overall Christmas celebration for the town. And so, but last year that wasn't good enough. And so last year, council allowed this second Saturday in December. But again, I have been in your position, as you well know, and these are difficult decisions. But are we actually going to let anybody who wants to close Main Street, or could we do that 52 times a year if I fill out the application and everything seems? Is it? I don't think we can do that. The town really needs to be really careful in terms of the number of times you close Main Street. We're going to close it on 4th of July because that's a national holiday and it's been a traditional downtown event. We're going to close it on first Saturday in December because that's the traditional Wytheville Christmas celebration. When you think about the long-term aspect of this, I mean, how can we do that? We don't have enough police officers to close it every weekend. We don't have enough public works people. It just doesn't make any sense from a overall town standpoint. And I know that probably some businesses have signed this petition or whatever that thing was, but I've also talked to them personally. And 2 Saturdays in December, you have 4 weeks, or about 4 weeks of sales. And these people are going to either be profitable or they're going to lose money depending on what happens in those 4 weeks. And to close the street all of those times does not make sense. At least from a bit, I've owned several businesses myself over time, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I said I'm not speaking for the Millwall, but I'm going to say one thing. The Millwall cannot control the traffic. We do not have insurance. There's no way to insure our employees. This thing of suggesting that they go out and go to 4th Street and try to let people in, decide who can come in, who can't come in, they cannot do that. And I don't think anybody thought of that necessarily. Jeff probably didn't think of that, but it's not possible. So whatever that plan is not possible. So,
I have a question. You
Yes.
said you were not speaking for the Millwall,
I wasn't, but I am now.
but you are now,
Yeah.
but you're saying
Yeah.
our employees. Is that
Excuse me,
correct? And you are
his
on
employee.
the board?
I am on the board. I am on
Okay.
the board, yeah.
So then you're
Yeah.
speaking for the Millwall.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, guys.
Let's make that clear.
But fine. Clarify that. I just spoke from the Millwall saying that the employees cannot do what was suggested by the safety committee. They cannot be insured. We don't have insurance for that sort of thing. Our workman's compensation would not cover them doing something that they are not employed to do. It just doesn't work. So whatever that plan was, and in fact, I'm going to say one more thing. Todd Wolford and I actually started what became now the safety committee. It was the events committee with downtown Wytheville and town employees. We started that 5 or 6 years ago. There was no way, if I was still in that committee, that we would have tried to do something like you're proposing for the Millwall. It is not safe. It's not safe for people to try to come in and out of that one small space, just like Kathy said, and have cars in that area. And in fact,
when those streets are closed, cars shouldn't be able to get anywhere near. It's problematic even when we have the cruise ins to have cars and pedestrians in the same space. It's not safe. And there's no, I mean, I would have been screaming and hollering, and Brian knows it from back those days. I would have been screaming and hollering about trying to mix cars and people in the same space. So anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I, again, appreciate the difficulty of your decision making.
Can I ask Brandon or whoever, what is, or just for instance, like what would your plan be for next year for your second year anniversary? Day or is it Saturday? And you know, maybe do like an early morning event on the same day on Saturday. Can you have like popcorn? You know, I mean,
We're planning something like that, but in August.
Well, I didn't know like maybe girls not maybe that may not,
Mm-hmm.
but I just didn't know if that was ever product as well.
We are, and we're doing that the week prior as part of downtown Wytheville's holiday celebration. So to mimic that programming 2 weeks in a row, just it simply doesn't work. And again, this is just a timing thing. We will adapt. That was the main point of my letter. Is I'll work with whatever constraints get put on us, and we will continue to be good downtown partners. Mark was much more eloquent in the way he expressed what this does, just big picture from a business perspective. It just really challenges us to hit our goals.
So the parking doesn't work, like having it give everybody else to find, or does changing the time a little doesn't work as well.
I would just ask that. I mean, they're starting their event in the morning. I mean, again, they have a 12-hour window. If they could be done by 6:30, I could have an event as normal. All my patrons would patronize theirs. Theirs would be over. They'd come to mine. It would be great. You'd have that synchronicity you're looking for. But they want the nighttime. I want the nighttime. That's what I'm in the business for. So, I mean, you guys don't have an easy decision, but it's unfortunately because as Ms. Johnson has stated, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, if you fill out the applications, you should get approved technically. But what, the reason I think this is getting debated is because I raised my voice as the Millwald, and I wanted you guys to know that this sort of decision has ramifications for what we do and the greater good of what we provide as a nonprofit organization and a gathering space for the community. So again, it's not about this event or that event. If Todd with Downtown Wytheville was trying to close all Saturdays in December, I'd be having the same conversation. It is really just, if anything, I wholeheartedly believe, let's close down every Saturday, put a door license in place, and let's fully adopt tourism and those revenues driven through events.
Not everybody's asking. I just think, why not just have both events? People go to huge football.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why it's really any problem. I just would have closing all the businesses want to partake in it, being family, whether or not what their motivation for just 500 people. I just think it would be the whole town all with.
Sure.
I mean, that's just.
Sure. And I was willing to move the start time back of anything we do. I could start at 8:00. I could start at 8:30. But with their close till 10 o'clock, that's the real issue. Is there's just not enough time to put another event on in that space unless it fits nicely within their event. And if you've ever been in the event planning business, trying to adapt your event to fit into somebody else's event is just a recipe for chasing your tail. So, I mean, honestly, what you'll probably just see is us embrace a different date. Like I said, Saturday the 23rd seems like a great day. So, yes, ma'am.
So when the Millwald had their grand opening, you all followed the procedure and closed a portion of Main Street. Am I correct?
No, ma'am. We closed Main Street for our marquee lighting ceremony, and that was because people had to be in Main Street in order to view it.
Was a portion of Main Street closed for you all's grand opening? I know there were people standing in the street. I don't think they were standing in the open street.
Yeah, I believe it was temporarily closed. They brought vehicles in for the
You're a
hour.
private business also.
No, ma'am, I'm a nonprofit organization.
Nonprofit.
An MPO is a little different than a for-profit or a family-owned business. So,
Okay. I just wanted
yeah,
to get some clarity on it, that you were
sure.
able to have the same opportunity when you all had your grand opening.
No, ma'am. Again, that was for our marquee lighting ceremony. For our grand opening concert, we didn't require any special provisions. I actually, since I've been here, I haven't asked town council for anything other than to listen to me and my ideas on how I want to make downtown great. So, yeah,
No,
I didn't close
you were
anything
not
for the grand
afforded that
opening.
opportunity. So you're saying that you were not afforded that opportunity?
No, ma'am. I'm saying I did not close the street for our grand opening.
Okay. And the lighting of the sign, the street wasn't closed either? Sorry?
It was supposed to.
For about 30 minutes.
No, guys, you fail to remember, you're investors in the theater. This is not the theater as an organization trying to go off and do its own thing and compete with somebody. We've just put $6 million on Main Street. You put $600,000 into it, and you asked us to go make that happen, and we made that happen. And we're telling you that the theater has to have some concessions from time to time in order to make it economically viable. You asked us to go do it. We went and did it. We're going to bring 47,000 people a year downtown when it's fully operational. We're bringing new jobs downtown. And it's not like we're not partners already. And so when you do think about things, and you think about things related to the theater, don't think about it as just any other organization. It's a compliment to downtown Wytheville. We're going to bring people into all these restaurants. We're going to bring more restaurants because the theater's there. And again, the meals tax, the lodging tax. Why are we concerned about December 9th? Because we're going to be having a big event. We're going to be bringing people locally. There's also going to be people from out of town. And the people from out of town are going to use the hotels. They're going to need places to park. They're not going to know the town. They're not, I can go over and park over beside the Methodist Church over on Church Street or on Franklin Street. These people aren't going to know how to do that. So that's why it's important that we have the parking closest to the theater we can possibly have. But anyway, again, remember, we're kind of partners in this thing. And so hopefully we'll be good partners going into the future.
Partnership. I mean, that's just my comment.
Right, exactly. I want to be partners with the entire town. If we didn't have businesses in town, you would not have places for your tourists to go downtown.
So I think, looking at your piece.
Let me ask one question to Paul, please. Have you any consideration as to the hours?
Yes, we actually have adjusted our hours of the event. Prior to last year, we were open until 10 at night. We closed down the street from, I believe it was 3. Sorry, what time? Yeah, it was at a different time. So what we've done this year is pushed our event back. So we're actually starting our event now at 2 p.m. and running it to 8 p.m. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. How long would it take you to the street?
I
know y'all had some phenomenal things last year.
On that end, probably not very long, because of the shift in what we're having potentially to do here. We are moving a single stage to last year we had 2 stages. This year we're reducing that down to 1 stage, and that stage will be on the upper side of Main Street. It won't be down near the mill wall. But we do intend to have vendors, food vendors, and event things during that time as well, as you can see there on the map. Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, Council, any further discussion? To require a roll call vote. Ms. Atkins? Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion. It's been a long meeting.
I make a motion to lead to
Motion.
You said what to be voted on, do you mean for it to be
the
approved?
DTU street closure request. The recommended action is for it. Motion and roll call. Make a motion.
Approved. Okay.
Approval.
And second, is there any further dialogue? This is a roll call vote. Ms. Atkins?
To approve it.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson, aye.
Taylor?
Patterson.
Aye.
So the motion passes and then congratulations. Move on. Next on the agenda is to consider resolution recognizing the George Wythe High School Future Business Leaders of America team. Mr. Freeman, I think you have a few words to say.
Mayor Taylor, thank you. I think I think the resolution pretty well explains itself, and this is a recognition for the hard work and the fine work of the FBLA members of George Wythe High School, and I think the resolution itself will be fairly self-explanatory.
I will go ahead and read the resolution and we'll have consider adopting. As whereas George Wythe High School, Chapter Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA, competed in the FBLA State Leadership Conference at the Hyatt Regency at Weston on March 30th, April 1, 2020. And whereas members competed against approximately 175 other chapters in a variety of events. And whereas several of the FBLA chapter members made their school, the town of Wytheville, proud when they placed at the conference, including Maggie Simmons, who won first place in the world in the word processing and received the Lindsay Clark Frank Manning Peel Scholarship. Heidi Pullman, who placed third in the electronic career portfolio. Audrey Angles, who placed third in the local chapter annual business report. Bill Odette, who placed third in the local chapter annual business report. Placed fifth in the introduction to FBLA. Lisa Sprangler and Emerson Harden placed third in introduction business presentations, and Tassie Caprano placed fifth in impromptu speaking. Whereas 6 of the George Wythe High School FBLA winners are eligible to compete in Virginia at the National FBLA Leadership Conference scheduled to be held in Atlanta, Georgia on June 27th, 30th, 2023. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council, Town of Wytheville, Virginia, officially commends the George Wythe High School of Future Business Americas and its advisors. Further resolved that copies of this resolution presented to the members of the George Wythe High School Chapter Business Leaders America, LA Advisor, LE number officials, and the news media. And as usual at this time of the year, I will present the school itself. Yeah. this point from council, we would need a motion up. Have a motion?
Resolution.
The resolution. Motion, do we have a second? And a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Passes. Congratulations to all those students. Next on the agenda is to consider setting a public hearing for the June 26, 2023 Town Council meeting. Consider amendment to the fiscal year 2022 budget. I believe Michael Stevens might have something to speak towards.
Sure.
Mr. Stevens, please.
Okay. If a municipality exceeds the appropriated amount for expenditures by more than 1%, a budget amendment is required by state law. We've had a few unexpected expenditures this year. We will not know until closer to the end of the fiscal year if budget amendments are necessary. So I asked the council to schedule a public hearing for June the 26th, 2023, in case any funds have exceeded their appropriated amount by 1%. Yes,
Any
ma'am.
questions from- This will require a motion.
Easy.
So
I need a
moved.
motion. Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. We are now in the citizens period. Anybody left that would like to speak? Name and address, please, sir.
My name is Zach Wright. I'm with the Thrasher Group out of Beckley, West Virginia. And I'll probably be the least controversial thing tonight, I think. But we were selected as an engineering firm to work for the town. Met Mr. Freeman and Ms. Holton a few months ago, and just wanted to come and introduce myself and say thank you for having us, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future. We like to come to these meetings to hear what's going on, and there's a lot going on, and it's good things, and something I appreciate the lively discussion, but a pretty polite discussion with thank you and apologies when things get a little heated, and that's a good thing that this is a great town, a great part of Virginia, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future, and just wanted to come say hi as much as anything. So
A long time to say hi, so thank you
Yep.
very much for making that trip.
no, thank y'all.
And real quick,
Glad you joined the meeting too.
Yeah.
But at least we all know our ideas.
That's great.
No, that's it. I mean, I go to these meetings all up and down 81 in Southern West Virginia, and so many of them are just cut and dry, and no debate, no discussion, and it's good to see all that.
I just want to mention real quick that you all keep hearing us talk about the Lots Gap tank. The county is managing that project, and they selected the Thrasher Group to do that design work. So whenever we talk about the Lots Gap tank, you're talking about.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is new business. Mr. Freeman, anything?
Just a sort of an activity report, and I have to tell you, I had to shed my jacket because my watch was telling me that my heart rate was over 120 and that I appeared to be resting. And so it was getting pretty hot in here. So I apologize, but I had to take off my jacket. Most of this is just sort of a highlight of management and other staff activities over the last couple of weeks. We're going to try to do this during each meeting. Obviously, a lot more is going on than we can include in a report, so we're just going to touch on a few things here. I'm going to move this back. It's really hot. A major focus obviously continues to be on the development of the 23-24 budget, and that will remain the case even though our third and hopefully final reading will be on June the 12th. We'll continue to be working on that throughout the remainder of May and the first few weeks of June. And as Mike said, we'll have potentially a public hearing at the end of June to reconcile the departmental accounts for this year. I'm hoping we won't see anything there with general fund. I don't think we will, but we perhaps with water and sewer. Just a quick update on some activities. On May 9th, the building official, animal control officer, and Elaine and I, the assistant town manager, and I met to discuss the Arby's building. This thing, I'm going to just say it, is an absolute eyesore and has been on the town's radar for probably not long after it closed as a viable business. We did get some complaints or reports about some large rodents in the area. So that's why we brought in animal control and the building official. The building official, Mr. Spraker, indicated that he has deemed the building derelict, and it's also violating the building code for security because they've got some windows and things knocked out. And even if buildings are not occupied, they cannot be unsecured. So he has notified them that they are in derelict building status at this point, and we'll continue to update you as that process moves along. The VDOT Transportation Alternatives pre-application period opened on May 15th. We're working on a preliminary application there for a sidewalk on Peppers Ferry Road and on Lithia Road. This is the same project or the same pot of money that has funded the Heritage Walk projects over the years. The preliminary application is a non-committal pre-app. It's basically a pre-screening, and VDOT tells you whether or not you have a viable project and sort of opens the portal up to you to create an actual application. So once we get through the pre-app process, we'll bring staff in to give you an overview of what is being looked at there. Meeting Center hosted the Wytheville Community College pinning and graduation ceremonies on May the 13th. They had approximately 5,000 people in attendance throughout the day. We want to congratulate the graduates and thank our staff for hosting another successful large-scale event at Wytheville Meeting Center. That goes for you too, Ron. I think Ron is a big help with that event. New River Regional Water Authority met on 5/18, and as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, they have agreed to pay the first debt service payment on the New River Regional Water Authority plant expansion. As I mentioned, that's a $7.8 million project. There's about $3 million in federal economic development agency funding in that project, but we did have to borrow $3.8 million from VRA, and that first debt service payment of $312,000 is up soon, and the board agreed to use their reserves to make that first payment. So a big relief to Wytheville, as we would have been on the hook for 80% of that payment. On May 16th, Assistant Manager Holton facilitated the meeting with Mr. Randy Martin of the Wytheville Redevelopment Housing Authority, Cliff Millirons from Virginia Housing, and a representative from Landmark Assets. We had a citizen earlier talking about the need for housing. We have talked to you all about that ad nauseum, probably for a year. So we thank Elaine for her efforts with the housing conference and facilitating some of these meetings. I believe that was a very good meeting with the three parties, and they will continue to discuss possible partnerships, and we'll update you if these collaborations come to fruition. On May 16th, Public Works Committee, consisting of Ms. Johnson and Ms. Atkins, thank you both very much, met with staff to review the Hope Alley vacation request. Ms. Holton is working on a report for your consideration, and we think you'll see that at the June 12th Town Council meeting. The Run for the Wall Riders will be in Withers Park on Wednesday, May 24th and Thursday, May 25th. Amy Mullins, the Visitor Center Manager, has done a great job of soliciting donations for the event. You all also contribute to that event through the Wall of Honor Committee, I believe. I might have misspoken there, but Officer Zach Taylor's daughter, Jalen, will be singing this year, Mike's granddaughter. And we expect about 450 riders. If you have never attended one of those, and I'm sure most folks here have, but if you haven't, it is a truly heartwarming event, and I would encourage anyone who can break away to go over to Withers Park and watch the riders roll in, watch the touching ceremony, and watch them roll out. And if you're not moved by that, you better check your pulse. Quick update on the Withersfield bleachers. As you all know, we had a recommendation from ProSim, a structural engineering firm, to close those off to the public due to some spalling underneath the bleachers. There's a lot of spalling on the reinforced steel that's within the concrete. There's a lot of rust on the exposed steel, and they said it was not really safe to for additional load bearing. They encouraged us or recommended to us that we get costing or cost estimates from engineers, not from engineers, from contractors to perform the rehab work. Thus far, none of the contractors that we've talked to is willing to put a price on what it will take to rehab that structure. One of them suggested that we pour it full of concrete entirely, just a single monolithic pour, and I think that sounds disastrous. What we're going to do is reach out to another structural engineer that we have on term contract, Mattern and Craig. They perform our bridge inspections. They work with reinforced steel structures every single day. They probably complete more bridge inspections across the state than any other firm. They have given us a proposal to consider to provide their own evaluation of it. We'll bring that to you probably at the next meeting to consider. It's more money than I'd like to spend, but right now I think the difficulty for us in weighing a decision is not knowing what it'll cost to repair, and without knowing that cost, we have to weigh that against the possibility that the structure just needs to go. And it's a difficult thing. I'm wearing staff out with trying to get prices so that we can put on one hand a repair cost versus a demo cost and weigh what that means to the community. So that's another difficult decision point for us coming at some point. We'll have to either fix it or move on from it, but letting it just sit there barricaded off in perpetuity doesn't seem wise to me. The Wall of Honor Committee's Memorial Day ceremony will be held at Wytheville Meeting Center on Sunday, May 28th at 1:30 p.m. So anyone who can, we would encourage you to attend. The Asbury Lane Development Project presented a first draft of their conceptual plan on the subdivision proposal for the Planning Commission on June 8th, or they will be presenting it on June 8th. And the engineering staff has been in close collaboration with the developer to provide guidance and support. We anticipate this project will come to Town Council for review in June or July after moving through Planning Commission. May 4th and 5th, the Town of Wytheville Museums hosted the annual May Day event at the Homestead for all second grade students in Wythe County schools. The museum staff and volunteers welcomed over 300 students and approximately 30 teachers and chaperones to the Homestead property. Over 2 days, the students spent time at 8 different stations learning about blacksmithing, gunsmithing, open hearth cooking, early laundry, making butter, rag dolls, music, and of course, they learned the maypole dance. So thank you to the museum staff for another successful May Day event. On May 12th, they did it all again. This time it's for 100 second graders and teachers from Pulaski Elementary School. They all did the same events, and it seems to have gone over very well. On May 15th, 17 special education students from George Wythe High School spent the afternoon at the Homestead and enjoyed the event. So thank you again to the museum staff. And I believe we had vintage baseball on the 15th. Okay. So just a few more here and then I'll be done. May 19th and 20th was a free movie night at the Millwall, and patrons were able to see A Night at the Museum and get a ticket to one of the costumed museum employees. These are Town of Wytheville Museum employees who collaborated with the Millwall, who provided free admission to 6 local museums on Saturday, May 20th from 12 to 4. This promotion included 3 of our town-operated museums, as well as the Edith Bowling Wilson Birthplace Museum and the African American Heritage Museum and the Octagon Mansion Museum. Thank you all that participated in that and made that collaboration come. Saturday, June 3rd is the first Bluegrass Arts, Bourbon, and Ale Festival at the Homestead. The event will be from 12 to 5 p.m. with general admission for $5, and age 12 and under is free. Admission, if you want to sample the bourbon and ale, is $15, and that provides coupons for 1 beer, wine, or bourbon tasting. Music by the Blue Ridge Opry from 1 to 4. There'll be artisans, heritage trade demonstrations, and children's crafts and food trucks at that event. So that's June the 3rd. It's the first Bluegrass Arts, Bourbon, and Ale Festival. On May 18th, Assistant Town Manager Holton and I met with several representatives of the American Legion and VFW, including the Legion's current commander and VFW's commander-elect. to discuss work through the new lease for the 4th Street Civic Center. I'm pleased to report the discussions went very well, and both sides are working hard for a favorable arrangement for all parties. We are scheduled to meet again on June the 15th. And Ms. Atkins, I believe you had requested at the last council meeting that we invite them to a future work session. They said that the Legion does not meet again until June the 8th, and they didn't feel like they should come to something like that until they had met again and discussed the new draft lease agreement. But after the 8th, if they feel like they should come, we'll certainly make that available to you. You're welcome. 2 more announcements here. Last week was National Police Week, the week of May the 15th. So we certainly appreciate Chief Hash and his dedicated employees for all they do at the Wytheville Police Department. And this week, May 22nd through 25th, is National EMS Week. So we also want to thank our dedicated EMS employees for all that they do. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
There, I have a copy of that.
Okay, thank
And
you.
next meetings,
This is in your package. But the Board of Zoning Appeals will meet on Thursday, May 25th, 2023 at 11 a.m. in the council chambers of the municipal building. Joint Industrial Development Authority of Wythe County, the JIDA, will meet on Thursday, May 25th at 3 p.m. in the council chambers of the municipal building. Wytheville Planning Commission will meet on Thursday, June 8th at 6 p.m. in the council chambers of the municipal building. And the next regular meeting of the Wytheville Town Council will be held at 5 p.m. on Monday, June 12th, in the council chambers of the municipal building.
next be council member time. You, Mr. Gill.
No, ma'am, I don't.
I didn't catch the citizen's name, but the gentleman that brought up the fact about bringing in other revenues. You mentioned the traveling teams. Hoping to pursue that. Center Director, please. And he spoke that rec center is being mismanaged. That's a concern. Me, and I think the whole. Not sure where.
Can we speak about that on a one-on-one basis?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's all.
I do have one thing. A gentleman reached out to me, and he had concerns about his son crossing the street at the library, and he would like to see some sort of cross there, because even though we have the police vehicle set up, and then we've got the solar sign on Monroe Street, he's concerned about the speed that people still come down Monroe Street with, and he has concerns about his son crossing the street there. And also that we have a new daycare there, so that might be something we want to look into, putting some sort of crosswalk there, so that people can cross safely.
Challenges because there people stops. We need to put additional equipment that's going to make them that way. Others. That's a terrible place like
It is.
They're out there now, I think.
Yeah.
They have been.
They do have this, the police department, they've set up there, but, and thank you. That's you and your department. No,
You can reserve.
I'll reserve the right to come back.
Yes, ma'am. I just want, someone did mention to me, I don't know enough about this. Someone did say that they were doing away with 5 foot tall that would be, now I don't know if that's true, I just want to table the, 100% sure about that. Didn't know if maybe there could be more police increasing of the elderly. I look be able to get those on there. In the evening, I would say maybe. I'm sure. They just said there is like a culvert situation at 310 South 3rd Street. The water issues on attention. Couple issues that she had. Nicole, got anything?
I won't be coming back.
Yeah,
Mine was short.
council members, please find in your packet which town council meeting calendar and their new maps in your packet. Anything else that needs to come?
Thank you.
Hey, Holly.